hide. Popping till it's swelling, but it won't touch me. Only love around, that's how it's gonna be. Keep moving forward, never looking back. The truth's in the power, it's an unstoppable track. In the city lights where dreams collide, we hustle through the night, fire in our stride. Whispers in the dark can't dim my glow. With rhythm in my soul, I'm ready for the show. We break the chains, rewrite the rules in this concrete jungle where nobody's fools. Unity sings louder than the lies they scheme. In the heart of the struggle, we dare to dream. Keep moving forward.
All right. Hello, everyone. Grand Rising. Thanks for tuning back in once again to the original Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur show. I'm your host, Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur, and this is your morning wake-up call. So as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so you're notified each time Queen Goddess goes live. Okay, so my apologies for being late. Okay, I'm sorry. I was having a time this morning. Okay, so let's get ready to get into it. Now, before we get started, let's have a brief word from my sponsor at 12 Tribes. Everyone, please take your time and hit the like button. Please like and share. Thank you.
Do not buy 12 Tribes on Earth hair growth oil and hair magic elixir unless you want super healthy, gorgeous hair that grows. They have a whole line of amazing hair growth products, including hair growth leave-in conditioner spray, hair growth shampoo, hair growth spray, and hair growth butter. I'm starting to sense a theme here. They include quality natural ingredients. They smell amazing, and you can see the results for yourself. So if you're looking for healthy hair growth for your natural or relaxed hair, try 12 Tribes on Earth today.
All right, so with that being said, don't forget you can purchase 12 Tribes hair oil at Etsy.com. Just look for Lisa Crafts, and you can also find it at Walmart.com. Okay, let's see who is up in here. All right, the lovely T, Blaxican the Traveler, Nessie X is here. All right, James Allen, Pearly is in the house, Lillian X. All right, Sheila, I see you, Terry. All right, let's get into it, Alice. Battle X is in the house. Okay, so shout out, hey, Mama Justin, Sandra, the lovely T, Aqua Girl Rising, Nicole. All right, Grave Diggers. Okay, so Leon. All right, I'm sorry for keeping you guys waiting. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Everyone hit that like button. I'm about to go to the Inner City Press as well as CNN to get our updates and to see where we are. Okay, it's raining. It's a rainy day in New York today, so everybody's out there with their umbrellas. So I'm going to go to Matthew and see what he's talking about.
Okay, here we are, Matthew Russell Lee, Inner City Press, here at the Southern District of New York Courthouse. Today, it's Thursday, May 22nd, 2025. We're going in once again for now day 9 of the U.S. versus Sean Combs criminal trial. Yesterday, it had been thought that Kid Cudi would be testifying about the burned up car and about threats and whatnot. It didn't turn out to happen. He's going to be doing it today along with 4 other witnesses, which is interesting. Yesterday, they had the conclusion of the agent who searched the Miami compound of Sean Combs. He brought in guns. He showed some guns with filed off serial numbers. So that's they're laying some markers down. Then there was the government's forensic psychology expert, Dawn Hughes. She did testify in the Amber Heard versus Johnny Depp trial, as well as many others. Now I know why Team Combs brought in a 10th, count them 10 lawyers. The 10th lawyer is Jonathan Bach. He's the husband of Alexandra Shapiro, who's been on the case from the beginning, kind of an appellate specialist. They work together, and Jonathan Bach, I saw him, he was in the Gerlich trial, which was about a Trump SPAC, and he did quite a good job in that. And I have to say yesterday, I'm not the only one to think this, he did a pretty good job basically pointing out that Dawn Hughes is always on one side of the issue, which she's free to believe. And it's probably a good thing to be principled but with an expert witness. It definitely comes off better when you're able to say, I've testified for both sides. She did say she's testified for some defendants, but they've generally been women who are victims of domestic violence who've been accused of retaliation and self-defense. So in any event, I thought they could have prepared her better, or they could have picked another expert, but that it may neither be here nor there. Now they ended with another one of Team Combs or Combs Enterprises personal assistants. This guy was named George Kaplan. He only testified after getting immunity. He invoked his Fifth Amendment privilege, so they gave him immunity. I guess I can see why. Some people wondered why, but he did testify that he bought drugs in at least 2 instances for Sean Combs, and he says the money, there's no, the direct nexus. He says he got the money from Combs and bought the drugs. He also, in a small detail, said he was sent out to buy a liter of some kind of no plastic in the bottle water in California, and came back with 2 half liters and was told it's unacceptable. And at various times he was told he would be fired for not doing exactly what Sean Combs said. So if being a bad boss is a federal crime, he's definitely guilty. But we'll just have to see. Some people don't like. They think that every single report should be moralizing. Now there have been some other developments, getting a lot of things over the transom, and we'll appear on that later. In the crypto world, in EDNY, Caroni of SafeMoon was convicted.
All right. All right. So shout out to Matthew Russell of Inner City Press. He does a very stellar job, in my opinion, of texting us the information as quickly as he can and giving us these morning reports. So I really appreciate him for that. And also, he sends me the documents, okay, all of the lawsuit filings and all of that. So I really appreciate him. So shout out to him again. Now, with that all been said, let's get into it, because CNN, we're going to go through all the updates. And since I'm late, there's quite a few. Okay, so the judge got on the bench about 40 minutes ago. Okay, let me pull this up. First of all, who is Kid Cudi? What we know about the actor and Grammy winner who is expected to testify. First of all, when did Kid Cudi become an actor? Okay, I thought he was just a rapper, but hey, what do I know? So Grammy-winning music artist Kid Cudi is expected to testify today in the federal criminal trial of Sean Diddy Combs. Now, the rapper, whose real name is Scott Muscudi, had a brief relationship with Cassie Ventura, Combs' former girlfriend and one of his accusers, and has been mentioned several times in testimony by Ventura and her mother, Regina Ventura. Outside of his involvement with Ventura and the Combs trial, Kid Cudi has had some bona fide music of his own. Kid Cudi released his debut album, Man on the Moon, The End of Day, in 2009, and has recorded a total of 10 studio albums throughout his career. He won 2 Grammy Awards in 2012, All of the Lights, a song on which he collaborated with Kanye West. In 2020, Kid Cudi collaborated with Travis Scott on The Scotts. Okay, claimed the number one spot on the Billboard Hot 100. Kid Cudi has several other songs that have appeared on charts, including his 2009 hit Day and Night. The rapper has also appeared on screen and TV series, including Westworld and How to Make It in America, as well as films including Don't Look Up and X. I don't remember him from Don't Look Up. Okay, but anyway, so let's get into these updates at this point. Okay, here we go. Okay, so when court got started, George Kaplan, a former assistant of Sean Diddy Combs, is expected to continue testimony that he started on yesterday. So 19 minutes ago, okay, the attorneys and the judge had a laugh this morning debating what Scott Muscudi, also known as Kid Cudi, debating that he can testify about later, also debating what Scott Muscudi, also known as Kid Cudi, can testify about later in the day, including about how his dog acted following a 2011 break-in at the rapper's home. So the rapper is expected to say that his home was burglarized and his car was set on fire with a Molotov cocktail, no less, around the time that Sean Diddy Combs learned that he was dating Cassie Ventura. Now, Judge Arvin Subramaniam asked the prosecutors, he's not going to testify about what the dog thought, is he? Okay, so prosecutors Emily Johnson Prosecutor Emily Johnson assured the court he's not a dog psychic. But Kid Cudi is expected to say that his dog was jumpier and more scared after the burglary incident. Now, defense attorney Brian Steele said too much testimony suggesting the dog was traumatized could prejudice the jury, which may include some dog lovers. Now, that's smart because that's absolutely true. Y'all know how some people, specifically people who don't look like me, love their dogs, okay? I mean, we love dogs too, but I'm just saying some people love them more so. Now, Judge Subramaniam ruled that the prosecution can question Muscudi about how his dog acted in the immediate time period after the break-in. Okay, so 15 minutes ago, George Kaplan, a former executive assistant to Sean Diddy Combs, is back on the stand, and the jury has now entered. Kaplan is resuming testimony that he started on yesterday under examination from the prosecution. Assistant U.S. Attorney Maureen Comey is continuing direct examination. 8 minutes ago, George Kaplan infrequently carried cash for Sean Diddy Combs, but one time in 2015, Combs' security staff asked him to hold $50,000 while they were on his private jet. The former executive assistant said this of the music mogul. Now, once they landed, Kaplan handed the money over to security personnel. Combs also had him get $10,000 cash from Western Union a couple of times. Now, Kaplan would give the cash to Combs after he picked it up. Kaplan previously testified that he started at Combs' Enterprises in 2013 as an executive assistant to the chief operating officer and was promoted about 10 months later to Combs' executive assistant. 11 minutes ago, Assistant U.S. Attorney Maureen Comey asked George Kaplan, a former executive assistant to Sean Diddy Combs, to confirm that he was subpoenaed to testify at the trial and is testifying under an immunity order. Okay, now remember, this is the one that showed up with his attorney and he was granted immunity. Now, with that being said, the jury could say, well, maybe he's just saying things, against Diddy because he also committed crimes and he got immunity for it. There's some people that may think that. So anyway, Kaplan said he understands the immunity order requires him to testify truthfully and allows for his testimony to not be used against him. Comey also confirmed with Kaplan that he can still be prosecuted for perjury if he lies on the stand. 3 minutes ago, George Kaplan, a former assistant to Sean Diddy Combs, said he witnessed Combs being violent with Cassie Ventura one time in late 2015 on Combs' private jet. He testified that he heard glass break, and when he looked back, he saw Combs standing over Ventura, who was lying on her back with her legs extended up, as if she was trying to create space between the two of them. Combs was holding up a whiskey rocks glass in his hand. There was a tremendous commotion and stumble, and then the glass crashed, he says. He said he looked away, and a few seconds later, he heard Ventura scream. Isn't anybody seeing this? She says. Kaplan said that Combs later went to a different area of the plane and told Ventura to stay in the back. Now, some of Combs' other staff members, including security and management, were on the plane, but nobody went to check on Ventura, he testified. Okay, so that's pretty much it for now. All right, so we're all caught up on that. Now let me see what Inner City Press has posted. Okay, let me see here. U.S. versus Sean Diddy Combs, day 9, 6 witnesses, including Kid Cudi, on Molotov cocktail. The cross is going to be done by Brian Steele. Now, see, I knew that. I said they're either going to get Brian Steele or Nicole Westmoreland to do the cross on Kid Cudi, but then I said probably Brian Steele because he's a man. Okay, so anyway, AUSA says the jet flight to Las Vegas. What was the layout of the jet? Kaplan says 4 chairs, a partition. I had a partial view over my right shoulder. AUSA says, when you witnessed violence by Mr. Combs on Miss Ventura, why didn't you intervene? He says, my career. AUSA says, after the last glass breaking, what did Mr. Combs do? Kaplan says, he came forward. Cassie stayed in the back. He asked me to get creams to conceal the bruising on her face. Diddy's such a darn devil. AUSA said, how did you pay for it? Kaplan says, with a corporate credit card. Now, I want you all to pay attention because he's saying with the corporate credit card, this once again adds to the commingling of funds, okay? Because clearly this was not business. And so this, the commingling of funds that I mentioned days ago. Okay, so right now that's all we have. So let's just sit tight. And while we do, okay, let's go over some of the things that my source who was there inside of court yesterday told me after the facts. Okay, likes up, everyone. Please hit that like button. I appreciate you guys for being here. Okay, so let's talk about all these rugs with a D that the agent says they found at Diddy's house. Now, I told you all some of this yesterday from the updates that we were getting, but there's a lot more than I thought. Okay, so pills. Okay, there were blue pills, pink pills, yellow pills. Okay, there was nine pink pills that were positive for MDMA and Molly. Or I think that's the same thing. I don't know. But anyway, Molly is what I wrote. Okay, 5 yellow, whole yellow pills, and then 3 partial yellow pills that were tested positive for Xanax. Then there were 10 whole white pills and then 6 partial white pills, all tested positive for Xanax. There was white residue on a black straw that tested positive for nose candy, aka Coca-Cola, and ketamine as well. And then there were eye drops that had liquid MDA as well as ketamine. And then there was a clear plastic container that tested positive for Coca-Cola as well. There was a Ziploc bag with a powdery substance, and it tested positive for Coca-Cola and ketamine. There were 3 orange Tesla pills tested positive for MDMA. More bags of Xanax found, and then there was a $100 bill with Coca-Cola residue. There were bright blue pills that tested positive for meth. Okay, and MDMA. Molly, blue-green pill tested positive for MDMA. And then a yellow tablet tested positive for ketamine and Xanax. White pills tested positive for Xanax. 10 clear pills and in a crystal substance in a box in a bathroom. Okay, the 10 clear pills or the 10 clear capsules with there was 10 clear capsules with brown materials. They all tested positive for mushrooms. There was a clear bag with a purple rock looking substance which tested positive for MDMA. Now, Tini Garagos asked the agent, did you find the guns in the security quarters? Now, the reason he's asking that is because, okay, you found guns and you found the magazines that go to guns, but the magazines were not in the guns. But nonetheless, and these were like AR-15 style rifles. So she basically asked him, didn't you find it in the security quarters? Because she's saying, basically alluding to the fact that they may not have been Diddy's, they may have been securities. Now, the expert witness. Now, this is what I thought was very interesting. The expert witness was very chatty, okay? She kept over talking. When they would ask her a question, she wouldn't just simply answer the question. She went on to try to go into such detail, so much so till the judge finally said to her, please only answer the questions, okay? She was clearly doing too much as far as he was concerned. Now, the defense told the expert witness that she never met their clients or Cassie. So you don't know if she was abused. You have no info on the case. So she's basically just talking in general. Okay. Also, and now, mind you, she did say that she was coming in as a blind expert on yesterday. She testified to that. So she was coming in as a blind expert. She didn't have any knowledge of the case, remember? And she said that I know that there's somebody named Cassie involved. Now, I told you all right then and there, that was all cap. Okay, clearly, we've all heard about the case. You can't miss it. It's all over social media globally. And not to mention, she met all these times with the prosecutors. You don't think they told her anything about the case? I don't know why she tried to put that out there because nobody clearly believed it, at least not the defense. So they said she's basically speaking in general. And then also there's been, what is this? Oh, they say, so you work with the government. Okay, you work with the government to assess if a person was victimized. Okay, while you pay more attention in the courtroom, than she would if somebody was to come into her office. So you pay more attention in the courtroom, because people's lives are on the line and they can go to jail. Okay, that's for number one, point A. And then B, you've done a lot of civil cases. And in civil cases, people will sometimes fake like they're abused or like they're traumatized because there's a check coming. So they're saying that basically, some of these people can sit up here and act like they're traumatized or abused or whatever, and then maybe they're not actually because they just know they're getting money if it's a civil case. So they're going to say you have to really assess if the person is really a vital really, I'm sorry, if you have to assess if the person is really a victim, basically, correct? And then to which Dr. Hughes responded saying correct. Okay, then so you're basically just giving general info because technically you have nothing, you know nothing about this case because you don't know anybody here. Dr. Hughes says, I'm not giving general information because I have to do what I have to do because they have me here. Then the defense says, oh, okay, well, let me ask you this. Are you sure that you don't know anything about this case? Dr. Hughes says, yes. The defense says, so they didn't give you the transcripts? Because it says here that you were given the transcripts. Y'all see how this is going already? Okay, y'all see how this is going already. Now she's sitting up here saying she don't know anything about this case. I told y'all yesterday it was all cap. Like it's impossible, almost impossible to not know anything about this case. You have to be deaf, dumb, and blind. In fact, okay. So it says here they gave you the transcripts. Dr. Hughes says, oh well, I went over the transcripts for my part. Okay, the defense then says you went over the transcripts for your part. It also says here that you were educating the prosecution on how they should present to the lawyers. Weren't you talking to the prosecution on how you guys should present your testimony? He says, you had 6 meetings with the prosecution and you don't know anything about this case. Yet they showed you the transcripts. Okay, were you not helping them and trying to give them advice on how you should be led into presenting the evidence so that it could make the biggest impact? Dr. Hughes then says, well, yes, but that was just for my part. But you said you were coming as a blind expert and you had meetings with the prosecution after Cassie's testimony. Dr. Hughes then says, well, yeah, I came in after the case started. The defense says, ma'am, aren't you getting paid by the same government that's paying the prosecutors? The same ones that you advised about how you should go about this testimony. Okay, now, mind you, this lady's getting paid $600 an hour. I told you all that yesterday. The defense then says, ma'am, have you ever evaluated a man that was up against domestic violence charges? Dr. Hughes says, no, I don't evaluate perpetrators. Now, right there, when she said that, I knew where they were going to go because here's the thing. When she says, I don't evaluate perpetrators, that's like she's already biased because she's already assumed that Diddy is guilty. Now, he likely is, but the point is, as an expert witness, she's supposed to be unbiased. Okay, please pay attention. So, like I said, she's already decided it from her just calling him a perpetrator. Now, she didn't literally call him one, but she said basically that these women who are abused or who are claiming these things, the people that they're pointing at are the perpetrators. Okay, so anyway, and then also, let's not forget, she's an advocate, and she works. She's an advocate, and she works right wing. I don't know why I wrote that. I can't remember. I was trying to get it all in. Please pay attention. Now they go on to say, "Ma'am, you're a clinical psychologist, right? And you're a forensic psychologist, right?" Dr. Hughes says, "Yes, correct." They say you haven't really written books in a while or published much. Okay. Then they brought up that training stuff that I discussed with you all yesterday. So how to be a professional witness. That's where the majority of your income comes from. You get $600 per hour, okay, and $6,000 for today. The last training you did was training your peers on how to be a professional witness. Dr. Hughes then answers saying, well, 40% of my income is from clinical psychology and forensic psychology, and 60% is from being a professional witness. So they're basically trying to point out the fact that she likely is motivated by money. Because here's the thing, I want you to pay attention to something that's very important. When they're saying that she's speaking in general, they're saying basically, lady, you haven't talked to Cassie. You haven't evaluated Cassie. You don't even know the defendant. And you say that you came in here blindly. So any information that you're giving has really nothing to do with Cassie or the defendant. What it has to do with is generalizations. You see, this is what they teach you in clinical and forensic psychology 101. So they're basically saying that when you leave out of this courtroom and you go to the next courtroom at whatever day this is to testify as an expert witness, you're going to say exactly the same thing that you're saying here today, ma'am. Because if you're going in as a blind witness, then you have no personal knowledge or information about these people that are claiming to be victims. So all you're doing is just giving general information that basically one could read or obtain from a textbook. Do you all understand that? You all understand that? I just want you to pay attention, because what the defense is doing is a damn good job. That's all I'm saying. Okay. What they're doing is a damn good job, because this lady has all these accolades. She is a forensic and a clinical psychologist. Okay. With years of experience. She was in the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case. Okay. Also with the Harvey Weinstein case. And just so you know, the Harvey Weinstein case that got overturned, she was in that. Okay, so I just want y'all to pay attention. I just want y'all to pay attention, because this is all about to get real juicy real quick, okay? And I am here for every bit of it. All right, so no more updates yet from the inner city press. All right. Let me see what we have here with CNN. They have a few more updates, okay? So let's get into these. Okay, so 12 minutes ago, after testifying about one occasion in which he says that he saw Sean Diddy Combs be violent with Ventura in late 2015 on Combs' private jet, George Kaplan talked about another time in which he says he saw Ventura with visible injuries at Combs' home. Combs had called Kaplan over an intercom system to meet him in the master bedroom or the master bathroom, where he directed Kaplan to pick up over-the-counter products like witch hazel. Kaplan said he realized the products would make an anti-swelling agent. So Cassie obviously was swollen and probably bruised too. To get to Combs, he passed Ventura, who was crying on the bed with her head in her hands. She had visible bruising on her face. Okay, this is what Kaplan says, who also added that he didn't stop to talk to her or to check on her. He left the house to get the items that Combs requested at a nearby pharmacy, paying for them with his Combs Enterprises company credit card. Notice they keep saying that he's paying for all this stuff with his company credit card. Again, let me remind you, you're not supposed to mix the personal accounts with the business accounts, commingling of funds, okay? And see why, well, I'll get into that later. Okay, so now, 13 minutes ago, George Kaplan, a former executive assistant to Sean Diddy Combs, left the company in 2015, December of 2015, saying the central reason that I left my job as Mr. Combs' assistant was that I was not comfortable or aligned with the physical behavior that had been going on that I had seen pieces of over the course of a couple of months. Kaplan said that he didn't want to be a party to fixing those types of things. Okay, it was extremely challenging because I was obviously extremely grateful to be in the role and to have a great deal of respect for Mr. Combs. But in my heart of hearts, I knew it was the right thing to do. 5 minutes ago, George Kaplan, a former executive assistant to Sean Diddy Combs, said that he gave notice he was leaving in September of 2015 and finally left in December of 2015. Kaplan said he spoke with Christina Coram, Combs' former chief of staff, after the incident with Gina, and also told her about the private jet incident involving Cassie Ventura. When he says Gina, he's talking about Virginia Hunt. Okay, she was victim number 3. As I told you all, you heard it here first. She is not going to be testifying. Mark Agnifilo confirmed that on yesterday. So, which I already had confirmed because I told you all I know a couple of people who know her. Okay, so she was sad and disappointed, he said. Now, he said he told Quorum that this was going to be the last straw for me, and I was going to see my way out of this role over a period of time. Kaplan told Combs that he was leaving because his dad was sick, and Combs was extremely gracious. He said he last saw Combs before the pandemic. Kaplan kept in touch, he said, because I liked Mr. Combs and wanted to continue having a relationship with him. Okay, so you liked someone that you were uncomfortable working for because of the physical behavior. Please make that make sense, okay? He wanted to stay connected to Diddy because of who Diddy was, likely. Just my 2 cents. Now, 6 minutes ago, George Kaplan, a former assistant to Sean Diddy Combs, testified that he once saw Combs throw a number of decorative or real green apples at another girlfriend. The incident happened in late 2015 at Combs' Miami Beach home. Combs was very angry, and he was throwing the apples hard. She was trying to shield herself with her arms, and she moved away from Combs. Kaplan testified that he did not intervene. He said he was a young kid really trying to make it in the entertainment industry. He said, this was essentially my first professional endeavor, and I actually thought for a second this might be normal. Diddy can't control himself, it seems. Okay, he just can't control himself. I mean, you're beating the hell out of people in front of other people. Please make that all make sense. So that being said, let me see if there's any more. That's the last one for now. And that was 7 minutes ago. Leon said angry and out of control. Exactly. Lillian X said it appears that way. Crazy fool. Okay. Be the difference clothing said because he thought he was God, honey. It seems like it. That crazy bitch Eric says, you're getting life, diddler. Okay. Claudette said raging demon. OG Patrice said, Queen, do you think Christina Quorum is going to testify? Do you think she got him? Oh, yes, honey, I believe it. Yes, all of these people that were part of this so-called criminal enterprise, they're all going to turn on Diddy. I believe that not only Christina Quorum, but I believe that Neil Dominique, D-Rock, okay, C. Gutta, I believe they're every last one. All of the people that I showed you all, remember y'all heard this here first, those are the co-conspirators. Every last one of the co-conspirators, we already know they're testifying. You know why we know? Because they're not sitting next to Diddy. Because they're not on trial. So they definitely are going to be testifying against Diddy. And also, let's not forget about Brendan Paul, the alleged rug mule, okay, who was arrested with Diddy in Miami on the day of the raids when they were at Opelika Airport on that private jet. Honey, this is all going to be a whole hot mess. Jay Gray said if they're smart, they better turn on him. Honey, they already have. That's why they don't have charges. I'm telling you now. Okay, so with that all being said, Leon said, hashtag please pay attention. Okay. Now let's go to Dr. Doom said that Dr. Doom, why are you being nefarious this early in the morning? Why? Why are you doing it? Dr. Doom says that Kid Cudi wear a dress to try. I don't know what he's wearing, but I'm sure we'll see very soon. Okay, probably sometime after lunch, I'm thinking. Okay. Patricia said, Mary J better start talking, LOL. Okay, Mary, listen, beloved. Mary didn't give a darn what Diddy has done for her in the past. She quickly distanced herself from him when all this stuff started coming out. Remember, she was like, oh, I'm very good at burning bridges. That's what she said. So that let me know she didn't want any of this smoke. Okay, she is not fooling with Diddy. Okay, so now let's go to some of these reports that I have for you all just to keep us occupied and also to give us further insight and intel while we're waiting for these updates to come. So let me see where I'm going to go first. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now. This is from yesterday. These are some more updates on yesterday. This is one from Fox 5 News from like 13 hours ago. Because remember, some of these reporters were actually in the court. Hold on. OG Patrice, let me read your comment. OG Patrice says, they're saying Kid Cudi pulled up smoking a cigarette. He must be nervous. Honey, you know he is, okay? You know he is. And how nervous. Listen, if Diddy's already done this stuff that he's claiming Diddy did, At the end of the day, he's probably thinking if Diddy gets off, whew, maybe I need to go to Costa Rica with the Queen. Okay? He probably is nervous.
To go back to New York City, live picture there over the New York City skyline. Well, our colleagues at Fox 5 New York, they have been following every twist and turn of the Sean Diddy Combs federal sex trafficking and racketeering trial, including today with more of these witnesses called by the prosecution. And the news confirmed that the rapper and actor Kid Cudi will be one of those very witnesses. Fox 5 New York's Michelle Ross joining us outside the courthouse with more. Michelle, good to see you here. What happened today?
Hi there, Andrew. Taking up most of today's testimony was Dr. Dawn Hughes. She's a board-certified clinical and forensic psychologist, and she testified on why people stay in abusive relationships. Now, first starting off, she revealed how much money she makes. She makes about $600 an hour for her work, and when it comes to a day of testimony, she makes $6,000 per day. She testified in other high-profile cases like the defamation trial with Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, singer R. Kelly, and NXIVM founder Keith Raniere. She dug into four main topics: why people stay in these types of relationships, how they cope, and how and when they reveal what happened to them, and memory. She explained that abusive relationships do have love, and trauma bonding can make it harder to leave, and taking illegal substances can numb the pain of it all. Now, the last witness to take the stand was George Kaplan, a former assistant to Sean Combs, who says one of his responsibilities was to set up Diddy's hotel rooms. The first time he unpacked Diddy's bag, he found baby oil, Astroglide, candles, and liquor. The other times, he'd have to buy the items on his corporate card. He also had to make sure the rooms were in polished shape before checkout to protect Diddy's image, and often threw out empty baby oil bottles and once threw out a powdery crystal substance. And he said he was instructed by Diddy to pick up drugs 2 times. Both times he testified Diddy gave him cash to pay for it and gave him a number to call someone to pick it up. Now, tomorrow we'll continue with his testimony, with George Kaplan's testimony. And after that, we can expect to see rapper Kid Cudi on the stand, who briefly dated Cassie Ventura. And he will also testify on allegations that Diddy firebombed his car after finding out the two were dating. Back to you.
All right, Fox 5's Michelle Ross there with the updates on this trial for the day. Michelle, good to see you. Great reporting. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. See you soon.
Okay, in the meantime here, wanted to get that, but we'll be speaking with some of our legal analysts about what all transpired today, and including our friends there at TMZ. In the meantime, though, we do have just another report from some of our colleagues, including Fox News correspondent CB Cotton on the Diddy trial. Let's keep watching.
More than a year after authorities raided Sean Diddy Combs' Miami home, the special agent in charge returned to the stand in the rapper's federal sex trafficking trial. He testified that investigators found AR-15 parts in Diddy's bedroom, along with a Gucci bag that contained drugs. Jurors also heard from an expert witness who explained victims may stay in abusive relationships due to fear of violence, financial control, or love for their partner. It comes days after Diddy's ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura testified that Combs would take things away if she wasn't doing what he asked.
Sex trafficking is the difference between consent and coercion. Cassie Ventura's testimony was very important because she talked about how this was coercion, that she was being forced to do this, that she didn't want to do it.
Prosecutors are expected to call rapper Kid Cudi to the stand as early as Thursday to talk about his relationship with Ventura back in 2011. She testified last week that Combs kicked her in the back when she briefly left him and began dating Cudi. Diddy's lawyers have said evidence in the case reflects domestic violence, but not sex trafficking. It's not clear yet whether they will present a case once the prosecution rests.
It's a long trial, and we're just getting started. And we have a lot of witnesses to go. We have a lot of weeks to go. And as the summer gets hotter, I'm sure so will the trial.
Combs has pleaded not guilty to all the charges. His trial is expected to last anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks. In New York, CB Cotton, Fox News.
Here's how to never have to worry about money after a car accident. Listen. If you have been in a car accident in the past year, even as a passenger, you could be owed a significant...
Hey, so we all make mistakes.
Okay, okay, I had to clean off my spectacles. Okay, so you all heard that. Now let's go with to what TMZ had to say. So Kid Cudi has been name dropped several times as a witness for testimony against Diddy in the trial in New York City, and the rapper will soon take the stage. I'm sorry, take the stand. Okay, himself. Federal prosecutors said Tuesday that they plan to call Kid Cudi as a witness, possibly as early as Wednesday. Well, we already know he's going to testify today. Now, they say Cassie mentioned him a few times during her 4 days on the stand, telling the jury that Diddy freaked out when he found out that she was seeing Kid Cudi. She testified that Diddy threatened her with a wine opener and told her that he could release sex tapes as a way to hurt her and Kid Cudi. She said that she started seeing Kid Cudi in 2011 when she was on a break from Diddy, but tried to hide the relationship because she thought that it would be dangerous for Diddy to find out. Cassie also told the jury that Diddy mentioned that Kid Cudi's car had been blown up. And Diddy had said this prior, of course, and that Diddy wanted Kid Cudi's friends to see the explosion. In her 2023 lawsuit against Diddy, Cassie claimed that Kid Cudi's car did explode in his driveway, so it's a good bet that prosecutors asked Kid Cudi about his car. Now, here's the problem with that. Here's what I think the defense is going to say about that. I believe Trayvon said the world is a stage. Exactly. You know what I think is that when Kid Cudi is on the stand, now I'm just taking a guess. Okay, when Kid Cudi is on the stand, in my opinion, the defense is going to come at him asking for proof that Diddy had something to do with his car being blown up. Okay, I think that's what they're going to come at him, because there was never any charges for this, and there was never anything officially filed or whatever, not to my knowledge anyway. So I think they're going to try to come at him as like, how do you know that Mr. Combs did this? Do you have any other enemies? Did you tick anybody else off? And who knows how they'll go with this. They're definitely going to try, in my opinion, to act like Diddy didn't do it. Now, here's an update from 8 minutes ago. George Kaplan, a former executive assistant to Sean Diddy Combs, listed some of the different businesses Combs was associated with, including Sean John, Revolt, Blue Flame, and Ciroc. Why is that important? Because this is the enterprise. The question is the burden of proof for the prosecution is to prove that, in fact, it was a criminal enterprise. So he says, when you work with Mr. Combs, part of the job, whether you're close with him or not, he has an extremely infectious vibration. Okay, you're around him and you feel his excitement. Now, I can tell you this is very true. Okay, this is why so many people love Diddy, or at least they did before now. But that's why so many people always want to be around Diddy, because Diddy does have that infectious energy. He's so hyped and so amped up. Okay, that people, I tell you guys on the spiritual channel that energy is absolutely contagious. Okay, and his energy absolutely is. I can believe that. Okay, so I'm just waiting for Kid Cudi to take the stand. Okay, so I'm gonna go to let me see here. We're gonna talk about Trump today, because I really want to go to later, maybe after lunch. I want to talk about Trump meeting with the president of South Africa. And also how Trump wants to have Oprah investigated, her and Beyonce. Did you all know that? Once in the chat if you all knew that. Did you all know that Trump is literally saying that he said that he wants to have Oprah and Beyonce investigated because they spoke out for Kamala during the election campaign? He wants to have them thoroughly investigated. Trump is so petty. Like, dude, worry about running this country and these darn tariffs, okay? At the end of the day, yes, he has said that he wants to have them thoroughly investigated. This just goes to show how vindictive he is and how this man is so very dangerous, because anyone who he feels has slighted him, he will come back for them with his power and authority. This is what he wants. And also, this is why I keep telling you all, for those who keep saying it, that he's going to pardon Diddy. He absolutely is not. Okay, Diddy has called him a racist and gone in on him. Okay, so you think Trump's really going to forget that? He absolutely is going to forget it. Okay, he doesn't forget anything as it comes to people going in on him or criticizing him in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Okay, now that being said, I'm going to the Breakfast Club. I'm going to put up an overlay. Okay. And I'm going to add some music because you know they play music in the background. I'm going to try to mix mine in with it so I don't get a copyright claim real quick. Likes up, everyone, please. Don't forget to hit the like button. I appreciate you.
I think most people right now are like, what is about to happen when Kid Cudi comes into court, though?
We already know.
Yeah, what you know?
Well, if you read if you read the indictment, the indictment clearly says arson. So clearly, the alleged Diddy blowing up Kid Cudi's car is the arson.
Yes, allegedly. Yep, that is exactly what he's going to be there to speak to, and he's going to probably provide a lot of the background context to his and Cassie's dating, fling, or whatever that was, and in the events that led up to Diddy allegedly getting so upset to have to do that. Now, yesterday in court, at the end of court, they kind of let you know what's about to happen the next day. They said, the prosecutors had said, look, tomorrow we're going to interview 5 people on the stand. I said, whoa, how is that going to happen? And they said, because to the judge, they said, well, that is going to be possible because the testimonies will be short. And that kind of caught me off guard because I had assumed that Kid Cudi would be not a short testimony because they've been mentioning him every week in court since court has started. But maybe they plan to get right on to what they got to get to.
Well, I was going to ask you, what does short look like?
I don't know time-wise what short looks like, but I will say when we
because you've been in there, you're in there every day. So what has been short? I know Dawn was 20 minutes.
That was short. Cassie's mom was also short. For instance, an example of not short, Cassie took about what, two days? 2 days, yeah. 2.5 days. So it's given maybe we might get an hour.
Okay.
Out of the Kid Cudi testimony. I'm not really for sure exactly what time they're going to go, but they mentioned that it would be short. He's actually first up on the stand after they finish with this former executive assistant of Diddy. So I'll be there.
Who's the former executive assistant?
His name is George Kaplan, and he was a man.
Oh, I thought you were talking about
Christina.
No, Capricorn.
No.
Yeah.
No, not yet.
Okay.
Not. I don't know. Those. She's not on the list. To come this week.
Gotcha.
Or today or whatever. But no, George Kaplan, he used to work for Diddy under Combs Enterprises, and he's already began to testify about having to set up freak-off rooms, allegedly, and, allegedly he was sent to buy drugs a couple times, and he used his bad boy card to do so, allegedly, so you know where they're going with him.
What about the guns? Because I saw the FBI release those pictures, and everybody was so caught up. Yeah, everybody was so caught up on the dildos that had the serial number scratched off. But
oh my God, dildos have serial numbers?
Yes, Diddy had dildos with serial numbers scratched off. But what about the guns?
So let me tell you something about these guns.
Not
right?
the untraceable.
Is he charged? I don't know if is he charged with these. Is this part of the RICO?
I believe that what they're going to try and bring in with the RICO is they're going to use the guns and the drugs to show, and I'm going to look this up to make sure that I'm hitting this right to the nail. So people be mad when I don't. But what I'm assuming that they're trying to show is that he used all of that to add to the force and the intimidation and things of that nature. But I'm going to look that up to answer you exactly.
Yeah, I just want to know if he's getting charged with the gun because they're guns with the serial number scratched off, automatic weapons. That's a big federal charge.
But let me tell you, the way Diddy's team came in the cross about them guns, I think Tanny Garagos, Mark Garagos' daughter, she is not to be played with. So they did, the special agent, they went through his home, they talked about all these different guns they found in the magazines and all these things. She is like an evidence expert. She got back up on that stand and she said, hold on, so what's your process? Y'all take pictures before and after so that we can make sure that you guys, are chronicling this stuff right and accurate. He says, yes. She brought back up all those photos with those guns. No photos before for a lot of the things. And she's like, well, were you the person that took the photos? The man testifying said no. She said, well, I'm looking at a bunch of stuff at the bottom of a closet floor. Some of these things included where they found the guns. They opened boxes and found different things, right? She's like, can you tell me which cubby these guns came out of? He said no. And she said, okay, so she's making the point. They're trying to draw a very clear distinction between how do you even know that these are his when they're either their serial numbers on them or they're not. You didn't do any DNA testing, like at all, and you could have. And it's easier for you to do DNA testing when you find these guns inside of a home versus outside and, you know, all of the elements.
But it's his home, though. They found them in there, so that they his.
But they're trying to...
No, if you find guns in somebody's residence and nobody claims them, everybody in that residence is probably going to be charged.
Responsible,
but
right?
You know how many people are in... She also made a point about how many people were actually put into custody when they got to the home. You know where she's going with this. But the fact... I'm saying that because... I don't know what a juror is going to be thinking about it, but the fact that she was even able to create that thought as a conversation, I was like, oh, she's good, really, really good at this.
Gotcha.
But I'm going to look that up for you with the RICO. And then also the woman that the psychologist yesterday, the clinical and forensic psychologist that they spoke to, Dawn Hughes, I thought it was going to be a snooze fest. She was actually the best witness yesterday. She spoke generally to, like, you know, why victims of alleged domestic violence and sexual abuse go back. And oh my gosh, she was so on point with a lot of the things that she was saying. And even when she spoke directly to memory and trauma and how it makes you not remember things, of course, the defense came in and did what they did. And it was very interesting to watch them cross this expert. But
so the semen was just warm yesterday. Today the semen gonna be hot.
The semen was like it was like room temperature yesterday. It wasn't even like heated. Today it's gonna get a little microwave action. You know what I'm saying?
The semen gonna be hot today. What else we got in the front page? I mean
front page.
Lauren, the latest with Lauren.
Well, we're gonna get into SZA, Tory Lanez, but we have a couple audios and I don't want to shorten that.
Okay.
But I will say congratulations. In the next hour we're gonna talk about this
on Glorilla Nose.
Jess has been talking about Glorilla's nose all morning long.
Yes, bruh. And she confirmed, she was like, Andy, got it done. Yeah, what's up? So, okay. Yeah, it's a little nosy.
That little
on Fox 5. I'm Richard Jacobus. I'm here with my colleague Lisa Evers, who has been in court for another emotional day of testimony, another interesting day of testimony, Lisa. And I think what's on our viewers' mind as they watch this trial unfold, first was Cassie Ventura. That was all last week. And Cassie's mom was on the stand today. Highly anticipated testimony. What did she say? Interesting stuff.
Richard, it was very interesting. It was a little bit of a surprise because everybody's still talking about Cassie's testimony from last week. But her mother, Regina Ventura, got on the witness stand today and was talking about how her daughter asked her for money for help because Diddy was threatening to expose her with these sex tapes of a freak off. And so Regina Ventura, the mother, what she did was she got a HELOC, a home equity line of credit on her home for $20,000 and gave that $20,000 to Diddy to try to keep him from releasing that video, that very disturbing video, I'm sure, of her daughter. And I think that was something that was just nobody expected that because people were like, wait a minute, she gave him $20,000. And the reason for it was all because she had cheated on him and he wanted his money that he claimed he had invested in her from, feeding her, paying her rent and all of these types of things. That was the number that he came up with. So that was pretty cruel.
The mom was fearing that he was going to release these sex tapes.
Yes, and that's her daughter. And, she was aware, obviously, of the situation. So there's questions about that. But it's just, when it's a mother, a parent's going to do anything for their kid.
Yeah, and I think she didn't get cross-examined either, right? So she just did her testimony and she was
and
out.
that was
she was
it.
on very short time.
Exactly.
On the stand. I want to just go to this male escort, the Punisher, as he's known. So he was the second to last witness to testify today. Interesting what he was talking about when he said he first encountered them. He didn't really know that this was Diddy. He didn't know who Cassie Ventura was. But then all of a sudden he was all in after a little bit.
All in, Richard, and he was all in, and he was also really in some ways it seemed helping the defense because he was talking about how much Cassie enjoyed the sex, that it seemed consensual to him. He even used the word, she gave me her consent. And then the prosecutor was like, how do you know that? and he said because of the way that she was moving, when they were intimate. But there was a lot to him because he said he was in the business as a male entertainer, a stripper, for about 30 years, almost 30 years, and that also a sex worker. He didn't say that, but they would do private sessions like that. He said most of the times he was with Cassie. He didn't see Diddy or her inebriated or kind of like too high. He wasn't offered drugs. He said he was offered a drink, and he saw what he thought was marijuana there. But Richard, the real thing about him that was so fascinating was the longer that he talked, he was under cross-examination by Xavier Donaldson, one of the attorneys on Diddy's team, and he started to ask him about this. What's your business like? What are you doing? As a male entertainer. And he said mostly it's like bachelorette parties. We'll go and do things just to super flirt. I'm going to keep it PG with the grandmothers and the mothers there, and the mother of the bride or whatever,
right,
to make it a fun evening. But he said some shocking things. He said he had about 8 to 15 encounters with Cassie and Diddy, having sex with Cassie, and that most of it, except for the last two times, was unprotected. There was no protection. So that was pretty interesting. And that he just painted more of a picture of it was a professional. He considers himself a professional, but that he was, that she seemed to totally be into it and enjoying it.
Yeah, he got paid.
Book on dollar.com to get our lowest rates. Why are you in my house?
Well, except for the last time, which was the final time, and they didn't hire him again, he got $500, basically, like he said, a cancellation fee because he had performance issues. And then he revealed, this led to a line of questioning about his journey. He said that he was going through this journey that many men go through, and that he was writing a book about it. And the name of the book, which we couldn't catch at first, and he was asked to repeat it a couple of times before people could really understand it. We're like, what's the name of that? And he goes,
okay, so let's go to some updates really quick. Likes up, everyone. Please like and share. Thank you in advance. Okay, so where do we leave off? Let's see here. Okay, so the last thing we got from Inner City Press was, I believe, when he said Kaplan wouldn't intervene when Combs and Ventura were in a fight. And he said because of his career. Okay, so, and then he said that he gave his notice and he left. He gave his notice in September and was gone by December of 2015. So AUSA says, when you left, what did you do? Kaplan says, I collected myself, then went to work for an integrated marketing firm. Okay, so that was his next job. Now, hold on. This is looking crazy. I'm trying to make sure I'm reading this in order. Okay, so then, hold on. Let me go to CNN real quick because it looks like I don't know if this is out of order or what. It's looking crazy. Okay, so CNN says, former assistant George Kaplan confirmed that he still remembers how badly he felt when Sean Diddy Combs spoke to him in certain ways. He says, I'm a young man, and this is a God coming. This is a God among men. Okay. He said, working for Combs was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And even though his moral compass pushed him to quit, he still wishes Combs well on his birthday every year, November the 4th. So defense attorney Mark Agnifilo confirmed with George Kaplan, a former executive assistant to Sean Diddy Combs, that Christina Coram, Combs' former chief of staff, was disappointed and saddened when he told her about the violence he witnessed between Combs and Ventura. Well, not just Cassie, his girlfriends, period. Agnifilo confirmed with Kaplan that Coram wasn't indifferent and didn't endorse the violent behavior. Kaplan said, he says it was sad And the violence was horrible, but it was also sad because it compelled him to leave a job that he liked and that he was proud of. Okay, now let's go back to Inner City Press and see if I can make sense of this. Okay, so Agnifilo says, how did Mr. Combs' pay? Kaplan says, KK held his wallet with a black, she held his wallet with a black Amex in it. Okay, Agnifilo says, you have no reason to think that he kept track of how baby oil was paid for. What? Kaplan says, no reason. Agnifilo said, or applesauce. Kaplan said he loves applesauce. So then Agnifilo says, you don't remember how a person could get out of the gate at Two-Star Island? Kaplan says, no, I just heard screaming and commotion. Agnifilo says, screams of terror, or how can I get this? How can I open this gate? Kaplan says, I don't know how to distinguish between the two. Where is Mark Agnifilo going with this? I'm just curious. Then Agnifilo says, he threatened your job, but did he physically threaten you? Kaplan says, no. Agnifilo says, you talked about Kim Porter, how she was different. Kaplan says, his respect for her. They had incredible kids. Agnifilo says, thank you. Yeah, he definitely wasn't treating Kim like that. That's all we have for right now. I'm going to go back to this video.
The name of the book is called In Search of Freezer Meat. Oh. And you connect the dots there. So it was,
yeah.
We thought it was going to be, I thought today, coming here, that was going to be pretty basic, but that just went, and there's a lot more to that.
Much more than basic. Another thing that stood out to me was, we talked about Combs' alleged drug use last week. He claims that he used drugs every day.
Right.
It was Cassie who said that he was overdosing. What else did he say about the drugs today?
David James, you mean?
Yes, David James.
Yeah, David James was a personal assistant. He was very close to them. He portrayed a much more hectic picture than he did yesterday. And I think there was one thing that I wanted to point out that kind of escaped me because it was towards the end of the day yesterday, but I think it was really significant.
Yeah.
Because I'm listening to the testimony, and I'm like, are they able to get what?
Sandra says, that's AX, American Express, Queen Ahmadiyyah. Thank you, beloved. Okay. Thank you. I have MasterCard. Okay. Thank you for that. I was like, what's he talking about? Okay.
What they need to prove these charges, because they're very serious charges. And he said that one time at the Star Island, which is Diddy's Miami Beach compound, basically on Star Island there, he was standing on the dock because he was very involved. He was basically living there while he was working for Diddy, and that he was, talking with Cassie. And she just said, she goes, I had no idea how wild this whole world was, because now this was 2007 to 2009, so she'd been with Diddy for at least several years at this point.
Yeah.
And he said, well, if you're unhappy, if you don't like it, why don't you leave? And she told him, I can't leave. He controls everything. He controls my career. He controls my finances. He controls my money. He controls everything. And she just told him, I can't leave, which was pretty sad. But they needed that testimony. The prosecution needed that testimony, and I think that was one of the real reasons that he was there.
Yeah.
The drug use is going to keep coming up, and I think that we're going to be hearing a lot more about that, and I think that's going to be play a bigger role than we originally estimated.
Ba-bum.
Okay. 2 minutes ago from CNN, Agnifilo questioned Kaplan about how expenses were handled for Combs. Kaplan previously testified that he paid for things for Combs or anything work-related on his corporate credit card. Kaplan said that Combs never personally paid for something in the moment. Okay, usually an assistant like then Chief of Staff Christina Coram would hold Combs' wallet, which held just a credit card and a license. Combs' travel and excursions were always handled by employees, not Combs, according to Kaplan. Agnifilo asked Kaplan whether there was any reason to think he's keeping track of baby oil purchases. Definitely not. No, he says. His world was the size of Earth, according to Kaplan, explaining that his boss was dealing at a high level with business situations around the world, and Combs had employees who dealt with the finer details of finances and ensured that Combs had whatever he wanted. Okay, and then he says to think that he knew where some of these things were coming from is unrealistic. Okay, then 1 minute ago, defense attorney Mark Agnifilo returned to the incident that George Kaplan, a former executive assistant to Sean Diddy Combs, witnessed on the airplane. Kaplan said that he saw Cassie Ventura in close proximity later that night, but did not remember seeing any injuries on her. Kaplan said that he didn't recall if any of the apples that Combs threw at Gina actually hit her. Kaplan confirmed that Combs yelled at him and threatened his job, but never physically threatened him. He said he never heard Combs verbally threaten to harm Ventura physically. Okay. Y'all have to excuse me, honey. I am so tired. Y'all just don't know. I've been up since 3 o'clock this morning, and I woke up out of my sleep, and I couldn't go back to sleep because I had to get up and start getting ready to go to the gym at like 4:15. Tired,
You
y'all.
said it keeps getting repeated. Speaking of that compound in Miami, so the final witness today, and his testimony continues tomorrow, was the special agent for Homeland Security. He was basically in charge of this raid back in March of last year. Tell me a little bit more about what he said today, because some of this is interesting about what they found.
Right. And he said, and he wanted, and I think they wanted to portray a very clear, because there was some criticism of that raid, particularly from extended members of the Combs family, about why did they need that big show of force? Why did they need, as he testified, as Agent Gannon, Homeland Security investigations special agent Gannon, who's one of the leaders of this whole special group that they have.
Right.
He said that they had 80 to 95 law enforcement descend on that compound in March of 2024. And he said,
that day.
yeah, you can't, nobody can forget it. And he said the reason was because they had, their intel basically had let them know there was security there was armed security there. It was a very complex, they have the blueprint and the schematics of the property, but he said they wanted to make sure that there was no danger to anybody, so they timed the raid. This was interesting. He testified they had a search warrant, but the search warrant, Richard, was. Are you okay?
Yes.
Okay. The search. We're on the streets. Okay.
Yeah, we're on the.
And we're live. And we're live.
live.
That's why I have my sneakers on.
That'll go.
You got the fancy. You got the fancy.
I have my
shoes.
shoes. I know. I should put sneakers.
You got your fancy shoes. Anyway, he so he was basically talking about the Homeland Security, the investigations, what they were doing. He said that they usually they do these raids at about 6 o'clock in the morning. They did this one at 3:40 in the afternoon that day, because he said they wanted to make sure that most of the people in the compound were out of there at the time that they went in. I thought that was interesting. And what they found, Richard, I mean,
I know.
well, they show the closet, and there's a closet. First of all, the property is gorgeous. It's I've been to Star Island, not there, but been to Star Island, and it's spectacular. It's just like one of those amazing places. So you go, they open the door, the evidence photo shows this closet.
Okay, they are all into it, honey. They are loving this. Aqua Girl Rising says, sending you some good energy, Queen. I got you. Thank you, beloved. You're so kind and considerate. I am tired and sleepy, okay? Tired and sleepy, honey. Somebody said I should be sleepy, not tired. No, I'm both. I had a very strenuous workout. And when you have a strenuous workout, you are sometimes tired, which I absolutely am. Tired and sleepy, okay? But nonetheless, I'm here, and I'm going to hold up.
In one of the rooms, there's shelves on it, so I'm like looking at it and I'm like going, what is this, like Sean John t-shirts or package of what is this? And he describes what's in there. He describes high heels, 7-inch high platform high heels, like dozens and dozens of them. He describes lingerie.
What?
I got air scope done on my full abdomen, my waist, my
Freak Off Essentials. And then he says there were also assembly parts for guns. And so under questioning about the parts, he says this is the upper receiver, this is the lower receiver. These are for AR-15 semi-automatic rifles. There were bullets that were there. There was ammunition. And then as the agent testified, that it's very simple to put it together. You put the two upper with the lower. There's a pin that you insert, and then you insert the magazine or pop the clip in, and then the it's ready to go. So there was a lot of concern about that. People were kind of gasping, honestly, when they heard that. But the number of things, and then of course there was baby oil they found. There was lubricant. All of these items from the freak off that we have come to know.
Yeah, and it's this continues on. He's back on the stand tomorrow.
Let me tell you all something. First of all, Terry Hinton, thank you, beloved, for your contribution to the channel. Peace, love, and blessings. And I appreciate you too. Thank you for your kind words. Okay. So the Inkwell said, Queen, take a power nap during lunch break if you can. Honey, I wish I could. Let me tell you something. 30 minutes for lunch, that goes by so fast. It takes me about 15 minutes to make the what am I trying to say? To make the thumbnail and then post the link for the video. Okay, so maybe I'll do that now. Okay, but these two, what I wanted to say about these two is they seem probably more excited than we do about this whole case. Okay, are y'all listening? They're into the salacious details of it all. So hold on, let me get into this update real quick. Okay, so okay, 1 minute ago, George Kaplan, a former assistant to Sean Diddy Combs, said that he took special care to clean up hotel rooms after Combs left them because of a distrust in hotel staff. Or distrust in hotel staff, or did he just not want them to find the things that he had going on in there, like the used prophylactics or the oil stains and all that? So, okay, I have questions. So Kaplan said that he was concerned hotel staff would try to sell content from Combs's hotel rooms and it could hurt Combs's reputation, adding that people want a payday. That's interesting because when Combs was going to these hotels, wasn't he using the alias of Frank Black? Wasn't he using the alias of Frank Black? Okay. And then he said some people want a payday. He said, I didn't want his reputation to be compromised. Kaplan described how when someone was working for Combs, they were either on or on call. Now, when Combs was at a business lunch, for example, Kaplan said that he would be on, but when Combs would stay at hotels, he was generally on call. He says, you understand that this was his personal time. Defense attorney Mark Agnifilo says, and Kaplan responded saying yes. Okay, so it looks like Mark Agnifilo is doing the first set of cross-exam, and then we're going to have Brian Steele when it gets to Kid Cudi.
Tomorrow,
right?
I know that the judge has been trying to wrap the testimony a little bit earlier now, so by 3 o'clock, you guys are coming out, and it's not as long of a day for the jury. But like you said to me, there's so much that's coming out in one day. Right. It's almost difficult to follow and almost difficult to report to even the audience watching how much testimony there is.
Oh, they're moving through it, and it's like the pace of it. And one of the lawyers that I've talked to about the case, he said, just from my own understanding, he goes, Lisa, this is not like state court. This is not like 100 Center Street, Manhattan Criminal Court. He said they are on such a tight schedule. These judges have such full dockets and so many cases that they have to keep scheduling, and they're really keeping it moving. But I thought the cool thing about what this judge Arun Subramanian, what he said when they were doing the jury selection and they were talking about the scheduling and they were kind of negotiating all of that, was he said
okay, more updates from Inner City Press. Okay, so 3 minutes ago, Agnifilo said, you sent him a photo of him and Kim Porter. Kaplan said after she died, I was heartbroken for him. Agnifilo said, were you close? Kaplan said, I invited him to my wedding. I didn't hear back. Agnifilo said, objection. Wait, Agnifilo? That must be a typo. Why would Agnifilo say objection? Clearly he means AUSA. Okay, so anyway, Agnifilo says you respected him. He says yes. I was about to say he's objecting to his own self. Okay, so then 1 minute ago, Agnifila says, what's this photo of? Kaplan says, me, KK, and Mr. Combs at Teterboro Airport. He just got the jet. That's why there's champagne. Agnifila said, you're happy there? You're happy there, right? Kaplan says, no, refresh it. It's that I was glad that I had found the mascara in the back seat. Okay, so that's it for now.
You know, and think about it, Richard, we're in May. This is a time of year, there's graduations, there's weddings, there's all kinds of family events that people are having, the end of the school year for the kids. So all the plays and all of that, and just all sorts of things. And he wanted to give the jurors, which I thought was very smart, he wanted to give them time every day during the week so that they could take care of their personal affairs, you know, bills, family stuff, work stuff, whatever, and basically stay connected with their life, but that they could still get it in. So if they shorten the lunch, it's not a lunch hour, it's a lunch half hour.
Now, right? Yeah.
And then he brought in, this is how smart they are about how, you know.
Okay, from CNN, this is from 1 minute ago. Under cross-examination, former executive assistant George Kaplan was asked about a topic that he spoke of yesterday, and that's security. Kaplan testified yesterday that Sean Diddy Combs hired a licensed security group in 2015 that he described as more professional and polished than Combs' former longtime security guards. Now, on cross-examination today, Kaplan confirmed that Combs had outsourced his security to a company. Kaplan said the only security personnel that he saw with firearms were the new guards, and that he never saw Combs with a gun. Y'all hear that? He said he never saw Combs with a gun. He said the only firearms he saw were with the new security guards who started in 2015. Now, remember, the agents from the Homeland Security investigations said that he found those guns there. But then remember, upon cross-examination, Teeny Garagos said that, yeah, but those guns were in the security, where the security goes, right? Security quarters, basically. So George Kaplan, a former assistant to Sean Diddy Combs, said that he desperately did not want to come here today. He confirmed that he doesn't have anything against Combs. Honey, he's letting that be known, like, Diddy don't come for me if you get off. Okay, so then 1 minute ago, prosecutors need rapper Kid Cudi's testimony to support their argument that arson was just one of the crimes carried out pursuant to the broader conspiracy that Combs was at the center of. This is what CNN legal analyst Elliot Williams has to say. Cassie Ventura alleged in her testimony in civil lawsuit that her ex-boyfriend Sean Diddy Combs became enraged and threatened to blow up Kid Cudi's vehicle in 2011 when he found out that Cassie and Kid Cudi were dating. Now, shortly after the threat was made, Kid Cudi's car exploded in his driveway. Kid Cudi, whose name is Scott Muscudi, is expected to take the stand today. Now, Williams said prosecutors have succeeded in establishing patterns of violent behavior. Okay, but Combs, along with providing that he procured narcotics and engaged in trafficking. Okay, yeah, they have proven that. They absolutely have. Okay, and all of these are predicate crimes that fall under the umbrella of RICO. They had to put it on. They have to put it under an umbrella for there to be a racketeering charge. See exactly what I just said. Okay, or at least to secure a conviction of that on that. This is what Williams told CNN's John Berman, that he directed pursuant to a broader criminal enterprise. All of these acts happened together, and he was engaged in acts of force and threats to further the criminal activity. Combs has pleaded not guilty to the charges that include racketeering conspiracy and sex trafficking. If convicted on all counts, he could face life in prison. So this was reported 1 minute ago. Prosecutors need, hold on. I'm sorry, I was about to read the wrong thing. Okay, so, it says Kid Cudi has now been called to the stand. Okay, prosecutors have called Kid Cudi to the stand. It's about to get juicy. Okay, I bet y'all I'm about to wake up now. All right, y'all hear that? They're about to get busy. Aziz Abe said they have to prove all that. You can't be in a single RICO You can't be a single person RICO. Yeah, you can. If your co-conspirators turned on you for immunity and they're now no longer your co-conspirators, they're witnesses. That's exactly what you can be in a RICO by yourself. Let's not forget R. Kelly was in a RICO by himself. R. Kelly was convicted of a RICO by himself. R. Kelly is doing 30 years by himself, beloved. These people do what they want. I know it don't seem fair sometimes, but this is what it is. Okay? This is what it is. And also, Terry Henn said, Queen, you got your second win. Honey, I sure did. And I woke right on up when I saw that. I'm here for every bit of it. Okay, Mel said, right, Queen. Claudette said, exactly, Queen. And let me tell you all something. When Gavin was on here the other night, you know, me and Gavin, we disagree sometimes, as I said, but Gavin was saying that the arson on Kid Cudi's car was in 2011, and that's past the statute of limitations, as well as, or actually, he didn't say it was past the statute of limitations, because I told him that I was surprised to find that arson didn't have a statute of limitations, you know, and he said in some states. But the extortion that Diddy did to Cassie's mom, that was in, I want to say 2016. Or no, 2011. That was in 2011. So when she started dating Kid Cudi. So he was saying that that was past the statute of limitations. But here's the thing. When you have these umbrella charges, which are predicate crimes, right? You have these predicate charges or these predicate crimes under a RICO umbrella. They don't care if it's past the statute of limitations. They don't. Look it up. They don't care if it's past the statute of limitations. Okay? Thank you, Pearlie, for your contribution to the channel, beloved. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. Okay, Terry Henn said, that's my question, Queen, the extortion charge. Yeah, they're absolutely going to use that. That's why they had Cassie's mother come in and testify. You see, like I told you all, I want to say it was Monday. Yeah, it was Monday when I broke down to you the elements needed to prove a RICO. And you have to have committed at least 2 predicate crimes within a 10-year span. And then I told you all some of those predicate crimes. Let me just tell you again. That would be S trafficking. That would be forced fraud or coercion. That would be bribery, extortion, you know, things like that, okay? Commingling of funds. So these crimes, even if they happened years ago, they still will put them under the umbrella of RICO to charge you with them. And all you need is 2 of them, like I said. And he's had more than 2 from what I can assess. I mean, if we need to pull up the indictment and go through there one by one to look at the counts, you know, we can do that. Okay, so this is from 1 minute ago from CNN. The cross-examination of former Sean Diddy Combs' executive assistant George Kaplan is finished, and the prosecution is now back up for redirect. When asked by Assistant U.S. Attorney Maureen Comey, Kaplan said the plane incident and the Apple incident shook him tremendously. Comey said why the plane incident shook him up if he didn't asked him why the plane incident shook him up if he didn't see injuries on Ventura afterwards. He says, in my heart of hearts, I told myself that I knew what was happening, and I felt an element of guilt to not be stopping it. People can be injured all the time without injuries being visible. I have to agree with him on that. The Apple incident between Combs and one of Combs' other girlfriends, which was Gina Hunn, okay, the tension and anger in the room was scary, he said, and I had never seen or been a part of anything like this. Okay, 1 minute ago, Sean Kaplan, a former executive assistant to Sean Diddy Combs, confirmed that he has reached out to Combs since he stopped working for him. He sent Combs a text in November of 2018 after Kim Porter, the mother of Combs' children, died, which he said in part, love you. He told Diddy he loved him. He said, I was heartbroken for him. You told this man you loved him. Don't y'all find that a little strange? Okay, I find that it's a little bit strange. That's just me. I mean, Diddy's not your family member. You work for him. He's your employer, or he was. Okay. So anyway, another time Kaplan said that he reached out to Combs to invite him to his wedding. He said, I did not hear back. First of all, that was clearly a clout chase. Okay, imagine getting married and Diddy shows up at your wedding. And I mean Diddy before this day right here. Clearly a clout chase, okay? Gravedigger said Queen, was all people just weak because they never said anything? I would imagine some of them were traumatized and afraid for their lives, maybe. I can't really speak to that. I can only give you my opinion on it, beloved. But I tell you what, if I had been one of those people, either Diddy would have been in jail or dead, or I would have been in jail or dead. That's how that would have went at it. Because what? You're not going to be beating on me on no regular basis. That's what you're not going to do. Okay? Because I'm crazy like that too. Diddy might think he's crazy, but he hasn't met the right one as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so now with that all being said, now, I'm trying to figure out how they said 6 minutes ago or 7 minutes ago the Kid Cudi was called to the stand, but yet they're still telling us what Kaplan said. Okay, anyway, let me continue. So, Kid Cudi, who described himself as an actor and musician when asked, identified Cassie Ventura in a photo. Okay, so he's on the stand. He said that they were friends and briefly dated. He said they met around 2008 and dated around 2011. When Kid Cudi and Ventura first started dating, he said he understood that she and Combs had some problems and they weren't dating anymore. No, they weren't dating anymore, just still doing freak-offs. Still doing freak-offs. Okay, that's it for now with the updates. Oh, hold on. Here's Inner City Press. Inner City Press says, AUSA says, in December 2011, did law enforcement respond to your home? Ms. Cudi says, yes, I had a break-in. Cassie called me at 5:30 or 6:30 a.m. She said Sean Combs had found out about us. She asked me to pick her up, so I did. AUSA says, why? Ms. Cudi says she was worried. Honey, I'd have been worried too. All the people that come up missing or deceased around Diddy. AUSA says, what was her demeanor? Ms. Cudi said, very stressed and worried. AUSA says, where did you go? Ms. Cudi says, the Sunset Marquee. AUSA says, why? Ms. Cudi says, I thought it was safe, off the radar. Imagine having to hide out for your life because you're afraid that your new chick's ex is going to be looking for both of you. Really crazy. Okay, so that's it for now from Inner City Press. Let's go back to the video.
It's human nature, basically, right? Yeah. So to get the jurors in there on time, so nobody gets stuck on the subway or the train or whatever.
Now that I use Monday service, AI makes solving tickets my form of meditation.
They have a breakfast. They have breakfast and coffee for the jurors starting at 8:30 every morning. So they get there at 8:30. They get breakfast, they get coffee, and then 9 o'clock they go into the courtroom and get seated. So
and they have it's a 6-hour day minus the half hour for lunch.
Yeah, lunch is brought in. Lunch is brought in for them too. So it's a relaxing thing because it's pretty. I mean, it's calmer this week than it was last week, but it's still hectic.
Of course, and even navigating around this area.
Yeah.
But you know, it's good that the judge is mindful of that because it puts the jury in the right state of mind. It keeps them calm. It keeps them, knowing where their meals are going to be, knowing what time they'll be able to leave that day. I think for them that can help either side. I guess it could help the prosecution. It could help the defense.
Yeah, and I think everybody appreciates. There's still a sense of at this point in the trial, of mutual respect on both sides. Because remember, Diddy's lead attorney Mark Agnifilo, he's a former prosecutor and one of the top prosecutors in this very district, in the Southern District here of New York. So he's very familiar with how the courts operate. Diddy's defense team, they're trying to do as much as they can. They did score points. So the witness said the male sex worker was Shay McCrae, Hayes or whatever.
Sheree Hayes.
Sheree Hayes.
There
Thank you.
go.
I'm close.
Yeah.
He was basically talking about how Cassie seemed to be enjoying the sex with him on a professional level, and that really doesn't.
Does that really help?
Yeah, and I think the thing we have to remember, a couple things. I think we have to remember that everybody is innocent until they're proven guilty, because there's been such an unprecedented barrage of publicity about this case and Diddy, and the most salacious things are the things that are the biggest headlines. And I don't want us to miss the building up of the case of what they have to prove, step by step. And I think that's the whole thing. Is like, it's not about whether what your idea or anybody's idea of sex trafficking is. It's about what does the law say? What are the requirements point for point that they need to prove? And that's what the jury, and the jury has been, been seeming very interested. They're very involved, paying attention. So we'll see.
There's a lot to prove,
yeah,
but there's still a very long way to go. I mean, we have to remind everyone that if you haven't been following this, you're only like, a week and a half in to when the actual opening statements to the first witnesses being
exactly
called. So there's so much more. No one at this point could say this is a slam dunk case or it's not.
No, and also too, remember all the witnesses that they're calling now. Excuse me, the pollen.
Yeah.
All the witnesses that are calling now are witnesses that are being brought by the prosecution. So the prosecution is bringing these people in to try to prove their case. That's why the sex worker was such a surprise today, that he was seemed to be supporting them, but he was under oath. He had to say what was the truth.
Yeah.
So then remember, we're still going to hear. We haven't heard the defense case yet, which they kind of have hinted at, saying that it's going to be, domestic abuse, not sex trafficking, drug use, drug abuse, a lot of emotional issues due to the drug abuse and that type of thing. But we haven't heard their case. We don't know who they're going to call.
Yeah, how did Diddy appear today?
He was a little bit more relaxed, pale purple crew neck sweater with the white button-down collar shirt underneath, which is like the jail uniform that. Mm-hmm. Well, it was the jail alternative uniform, the casual Friday look every day. Yeah. And he has a bunch of those different outfits that are all pretty much the same.
His demeanor seems like he's just calmer.
He seems calmer. He seems like he's paying a lot of attention to it. And I think he's at that point where that initial, excitement, anticipation, fear, all of that. But I mean, he's looking at pretty serious charges and could be a big change in his life. So
could be. Well, we shall see. Lisa, who is going to be there every single day.
I don't know about that. Almost every day.
Reporting for us, giving us the insight I think only you can give.
Thank you.
So we will send it back to this live stream.
That every time she took drugs, it was involuntary. As long as they can show that, there were certain instances where she didn't want to, or that Combs was particularly insistent on this, or that this was something that he was really pushing. So they do have to connect this to this pattern of coercion and control, but they don't have to necessarily say that every time she took drugs, it was totally against her will.
And, he of course, a larger than life figure, has endless amounts of money. So in some ways I could see someone saying it's not a surprise that he had just so many drugs in his home, as well as, some of the other, baby oil's been talked about at length in this case. But were you surprised by just how much it was talked about that apparently he was regularly using substances, that he himself was someone who partook in these drugs a lot, according to people who were around him?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's surprising for many of us to hear about how pervasive that was, and how much of a factor in their lifestyle this was. But, one thing that's interesting to me is it really goes to this idea of what kind of a network he had around him. He was certainly not able to get all these drugs on his own. He had assistants and guards and people that worked with him that were able to help him procure drugs on a regular basis. This is going to help the prosecutors go to one of, I think, the biggest hurdles that they are going to have to prove here, is the idea that this was an enterprise. Remember, one of the things they've charged is a racketeering conspiracy. In order for this to be racketeering, there has to be an enterprise. It can't just be one person doing this on his own. It's a little tricky when you only have one person sitting there in the defendant's chair, right? He's the only person charged right now. So it's a little hard to show that it's an enterprise. And one way that they're going to have to show that is by, drawing out people that worked for him, what they did to help advance this
Okay, so let me go to some of the comments, beloveds, while we're waiting for further updates. Okay, likes up, everyone, please like and share. Okay, American Islam says, so it's not surprising that the feds use baby oil to prove a RICO. They haven't proved it yet, and it's going to take a whole lot more than baby oil. Okay. With that all being said, Andrew says P. Diddy should get 1 day in prison for each time he made a person throw up in a bucket. He's already made me throw up 10 times. Okay, beloved, nefarious. Okay. All right. So anyway, with that all been said, listen, bottom line is bottom line is, the end of the day, Aziz Abe says RICO equals a corrupt organization act, not a single person. Real law versus opinion. Well, this isn't my opinion. They have Diddy sitting on trial, and he's the only one in the RICO. So it looks like they can charge one person with the RICO. Now, whether they're supposed to charge one person with the RICO or not, they've already done it. And let's not forget that, as I said previously, R. Kelly was the only person in the RICO, and he's sitting in prison for 30 years. Okay, so I would say that's a whole lot more than an opinion. Okay. These people do what they want at the end of the day. And as I said, these people that they claim were involved in this RICO organization with Diddy, they have been granted immunity, or have you not been watching the trial? These people have all been granted immunity, and some of them have pled, I'm sure, to lesser charges. Okay, because that can happen too. That's just how it works.
Racketeering enterprise, including helping Combs buy these drugs that were then used both recreationally by Combs, but also to help facilitate these freak-offs.
Yeah, and it's not only just drugs. I mean, there's images that we've seen of like white powder, for example, drugs that you would assume are not legal, but then there's prescription drugs that he was able to get. And typically for folks that aren't music moguls, your doctor's not going to give you that amount of certain drugs. Cassie's testimony, from what we've heard from our reporter in the courtroom, it was incredibly raw. It was incredibly emotional. She's been described by many as the star witness in this case. What do you make of the decision to have her go? And I know she's 8.5 months pregnant, so her availability probably factors into this as well. But for her to go early in this case and kind of set the tone, as opposed to building up your case and then having her come in as somewhat of a grand finale at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was probably a decision that was part strategic and part practical. I mean, when you have a witness that is pregnant, could theoretically give birth any day, you want to make sure that you get them in before they become unavailable. Let's be honest, it also doesn't hurt their case to have a witness that is pregnant.
Aziz El Bay, hold on, let me go to your comment, because you seem to want to have a debate with me. I'm not going to debate you. Okay. You said R. Kelly is in prison under the Mann Act, not a RICO. Man studied real law. Beloved, I have studied real law. I have 2 degrees in criminal justice. How many do you have? R. Kelly is absolutely in prison because he was convicted of RICO. Okay, let me just prove my point, because I just really get annoyed when people try to test my intelligence, okay, because they think they know something when I went to college for it. I'm going to share my screen. Hold on, beloveds. This will be brief. I'm just going to prove a point here so we don't have to keep going back and forth. All right. At the end of the day, it's very easy to pull up receipts. I just typed it in. Okay, I want you to read this. And yes, R. Kelly was charged with the Mann Act, but he also was convicted. Right there, you can see, you can look it up yourself if you can't see it. Okay, let me show you what I typed in. Was R. Kelly convicted of RICO? Which I already knew the answer, but just for your sake. Yes, R. Kelly was convicted of racketeering. Okay, a charge under the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act in his federal trial in Brooklyn. All right. All right, I hope that answers your questions. Now, let's continue. I'm going to share the screen so we can go back to this video. Let me put my overlay back up.
You could tell that the defense, was a little bit more cautious with her. I think they treated her with a little bit more respect and probably went a little easier on her because of the fact that she's pregnant. It's not a great look to see defense counsel beating up on somebody who's 8.5 months pregnant. So there probably was some of just the practical, let's get this in before she becomes unavailable side to the decision. But also, when I was a prosecutor, we always you want to start strong and you want to end strong. Anything that's kind of boring, troublesome, you kind of want to bury in the middle of your case.
And also, for those of you who missed it, I did a video a couple of days ago where I had my friend Gavin Richard Esquire, who is a legal expert. I had him on the show so that he could answer questions from people like Aziz, who want to keep trying to go back and forth with the Queen. And he'll be back on here on Friday. As you all may remember, he said that he would be on her Friday if I went live, which I'm absolutely going live. Okay, so now, here is the latest from 2 minutes ago. This is CNN. Kid Cudi testified that after he picked up Cassie Ventura in December of 2011, they went to a nearby hotel and spoke on the phone with Capricorn Clark, one of Diddy Combs' employees, Sean Diddy Combs' employees. Now, remember, you heard it here first. I told you guys that Capricorn Clark is supposed to also testify. She was previously Diddy's assistant. Now, Clark seemed very scared, sounded like she was on the verge of tears. Clark told the two that Combs and an associate were inside Kid Cudi's house, and she was in a car outside waiting on them. This is what Kid Cudi is testifying to. This is all nefarious. She was forced to go along with them over there. So on the way back to his house from the hotel, Kid Cudi said that he called Combs. Kid Cudi asked Combs if he was in his house. Combs said, "I just want to talk to you. I'm on my way. I'll be right down. I'm over here waiting for you." What? Diddy is crazy, Diddy is literally crazy. I absolutely cannot with him. Now, let me see what Inner City Press has, if anything. So Inner City Press says, AUSA says, "What did you say?" Ms. Cudi says that I didn't want to talk to him. He broke into my house, hurt my dog. AUSA says, "Did you and Miss Ventura break up?" Ms. Cudi said, "Yes." AUSA said, "What about your car?" Ms. Cudi said, "My dog's babysitter called me and told me my car was on fire." Ooh, Diddy, honey, you about to go jail. AUSA said, "Where were you?" Ms. Cudi said, "At a relative of my ex-girlfriend." AUSA said, "Where did you go?" Ms. Cudi said, "To my house, 8925 Hollywood Hills Road." AUSA said, "Let me show you 6 pictures. Do you recognize?" Ms. Cudi said, "My Porsche." Diddy is all up in this man's house. What's really going on here? So hold on. More updates from CNN. So Kid Cudi continued to describe his return to his home in December of 2011 after meeting Cassie Ventura at a hotel, and after Ventura told him that Sean Diddy Combs found out Kid Cudi and Ventura had been dating. The outside of his house seemed pretty normal, but he later realized that his security cameras had been down or had been moved. He had not moved them. Now, inside the house, some gifts that he had bought for his family were opened and on the kitchen counter. His dog was locked in a bathroom, but he had not shut the dog in there before he left. Diddy is like, this is like really scary. This is getting really creepy, Now, from 1 minute ago, CNN reports that rapper Kid Cudi testified that he spent the holidays with Cassie Ventura at her family's home in Connecticut. Combs texted him a couple of times while he was there, and he said, I guess he was in the dark about things and wanted to talk, but at that point, post break-in, I didn't want to talk. You broke in my house. You messed with my dog. I don't want to talk to you. And who would? Now, from 1 minute ago, Kid Cudi said that after he returned to his home, he then called Sean Diddy Combs again, asking where he was. Combs said he was on his way. I wanted to confront him. I wanted to fight him. Oh, I wish you had, honey, and put the paws on him. Kid Cudi said that he then decided to call the police. He recalled thinking at the time, I don't know who he has with him. I don't know what his intentions are. Kid Cudi said that he filed a police report that day about the apparent break-in. Oh, good, he filed a police report, so now they have receipts, okay, that this actually occurred.
For them, Cassie's a really important witness because she can speak to, this many years of what happened during this racketeering conspiracy. She was there, with Combs and a part of his life throughout, most of the charged time period. And she can speak to a lot of the, various racketeering incidents that have been charged, but she can also give a very good
Okay, let me go to this comment from Aziz Abe. He says, degree means down or away. It takes away from I have a agree means to achieve up. Sir, I know that, but nonetheless, I still have a degree, no matter what it means or what they call it. At the end of the day, I know all about Black's Law book as well and the lingo in there. Okay, I've studied that, and I'm also in my correct status. Okay, I took a whole webinar years ago to do so. So with that all been said, the same things that you think you know about the law and the 11th edition of the Black's Law book, okay, I absolutely know those same things. Okay, shall we continue? And by the way, for those of you who missed it, and you have been asking me to repost the video about how you authenticate your birth certificate, I think Juju asked me about that some time ago. I'm going to be reposting that. But let's continue.
Overview of what he was like as a person. She testifies about the abuse. She testifies about the coercion. Through her, they're able to show this video, the CNN video showing his abuse in the hotel room. So I think she was a really important witness. I really can't imagine saving her for the end. It would be hard to kind of paint this picture without her going in the beginning.
Because I think of what she said, and yeah, she was a young girl at the time that they met. She said that she was innocent to a lot of things. She talks about doing these drugs.
And for future references, I don't debate people that are not on my level. Okay, I teach. That's what I do for those that aren't on my level. Now, with that all being said, here's the next one 1 minute ago from CNN. One morning in January of 2012, Kid Cudi said his dog watcher called him from his home to tell him that his car was on fire. He said that he was at his ex-girlfriend's sister's house at the time, about 45 minutes away. He said his friend sent him photos of his damaged car in his driveway before he got there. The jury is now reviewing the photos. On the witness stand, Kid Cudi described the photo as the damage of the Molotov cocktail in my Porsche. It looks like the top of my Porsche was cut open, and that's where the Molotov cocktail was put in. Honey, these are mafia type games at the end of the day. Diddy was acting like a whole John Gotti, in my opinion.
And then now you're hearing more about the drug use and seeing the evidence related to the drugs that, for example, was found at Diddy's house in Miami. How do you as a prosecutor make sure that that really emotional testimony in the beginning still holds, where a couple days later, a couple witnesses later, we're talking about the drugs, and you want to make sure the jurors remember that pregnant woman in the beginning who was so innocent that she was taking these substances?
Yeah, that's always a challenge for prosecutors. And, not only is it hard to keep sort of that emotional high going, but remember, witnesses and evidence don't always come in to a case in chronological order. It's not always a linear description of first, then this happened, then, point A to point C. You kind of come in bits and pieces. You might have one witness who's only available to testify in a given week, so you have to call them then. So really, that's the prosecutor's job.
TC Dan said, let's not be slick and going in on the queen now. You can express your views without disrespecting the queen. Thank you very much. Exactly. Thank you, beloved. At the end of the day, okay? Now he's talking about John Henry Clark. I'm aware of everything that you throw. Well, sir, I'm not throwing anything. You are. You're the one throwing things. I'm only responding to what you put in the chat, okay? Let's not try to act like I'm the one that's being the hostile or aggressive person. Okay, at the end of the day, you're the one putting stuff to chat and I'm responding to it. So what the bottom line is I know everything that you think you know about the law, and that's just facts. Okay, that's just facts, beloved. All right, now keep talking and I'm gonna put you up out of here. Because if you really don't like what I'm talking about or don't agree, that's fine. You don't have to agree, but I'm not gonna keep going back and forth with you. I've already said what I said, and if you don't like it, you can leave. Okay, that's what you can do. All right.
Closing argument. And we're going to see them have a huge job to put all of this together at the end of the case. And what they're going to do is try to bring the jurors back to Cassie's testimony. They'll quote from her testimony. They'll try to draw out and be like, remember when she talked about this? Remember how she sounded? So they'll have to do a good job trying to bring the jurors back to that moment. That is the challenge of having a witness like Cassie go first is, you have a 5, 6, 7 week trial. By the end of it, are the jurors really remembering everything she says? She was such a compelling witness, and I think her testimony was so emotional. You said the word raw. I think that's a good description of it. I think the jurors will remember the effect that it had on them, even if they don't remember all the specifics of her testimony. And that's then going to be the prosecutor's job at closing to bring those back into the narrative.
I think for so many of us on the outside of the world of fame, like you try to think of what it would be like if you were in those circles like Sean Combs, and then you hear about the drug use, the sex, and all of this. And then I think back to this jury, and it's like you have a social.
Okay, so here is another update from 1 minute ago from CNN. They say Kid Cudi said his Porsche could not be salvaged after the damage following the fire. He said law enforcement found a Molotov cocktail in the driver's seat. But once he arrived at his home, it was kind of just burnt up on the ground near the vehicle. When asked his reaction to the incident, Muscudi deadpanned responded, "What the F?" I don't blame him. Diddy is crazy, honey. Diddy is a whole sociopath. I keep telling y'all that. He's a narcissist and a sociopath, as far as I'm concerned, at the end of the day. He really is. Okay, so 5 minutes ago from Inner City Press, AUSA says, what was your reaction to your car being set on fire? Ms. Cudi said, what the F? The defense says, objection. The judge says, overruled. The judge overruled Kid Cudi cursing in the court, saying, what the F? Okay, well, you asked the man what he said, and that's what he said. And that's what I would have said, too. Like, what the F? Who's this crazy? Okay? I mean, you would think that Diddy was somebody on the movie Goodfellas. Okay? In all honesty.
Social worker sitting on that jury. There's like a deli clerk sitting on that jury. What impact could just how exotic this lifestyle was have on people? Like, I think of my parents, if they were sitting on this jury, I mean, they would be blown away just understanding that any of this would be to allege to have happened in this man's life.
How much should good car insurance cost you a month? $80? $120? Nope. Try $38.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was a prosecutor for many, many years, and I read about the allegations in this case, and my jaw kind of drops. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that stuff's happening. And I'm somebody who I think of as having pretty thick skin with this. It's really shocking. It's hard to hear about.
Here's another update, but let me read a couple of comments first. Cerebral says, the neighbors saw the fire. Why didn't the defense ask the neighbors, ask that the neighbors see anyone or bring in the neighbors? That's a very good point, beloved. That's a good point. I think you mean the prosecution because he's testifying for them. So that would have been good. But also, well, because if the neighbors actually saw it, yeah, that would work for the prosecution's best interest. And so now we're about to go to break because it's 11:20. Okay. Governor of the Death Star says, I agree. The queen does only debate with her equals. The rest she teaches. Well said, my queen. Thank you, beloved. I appreciate you. And that's a quote from Dr. Henry Clark, John Henry Clark. Okay. So now, TC Dan said, and that's Dr. Queen Shakur to you. Okay. Daddy Little says, bye, Felicia. I know, right? I mean, if you don't want to be here, you can always leave. Okay. Okay. So anyway, here's the last Oh, they're on lunch break now. The jury is, well, not lunch break. They're on a break. Okay, not a lunch break. My bad. So, yes, proceedings in the court are paused as the jury takes a short break. Well, now, at least so far, we don't have anybody calling a sidebar. Okay. Let me see what they have on Inner City Press. Okay, they're waiting. It's nothing posted since 8 minutes ago.
I imagine what the defense is really going to harp on throughout the case, but particularly when it comes to closing, is this idea that, the jurors can hate Combs. They can find this lifestyle disgusting. They can find him to be perverted, but that's not what's charged. He's not charged with being a scumbag. He's charged with being a racketeer. He's charged with being a sex trafficker. So they're really going to focus on, put aside everything you've heard about this lifestyle, try to separate that from the criminal elements. It's a hard thing to do. It's a very fine line to walk, right? I mean, jurors are people just like you and I, and it's very hard for somebody to tell us, yes, he's just a domestic abuser. He's just, somebody with this, abhorrent lifestyle, but he didn't commit these certain crimes. That's hard for jurors as it is for anybody to get their head around. So it's a pretty tricky defense, I think, to make successful.
Yeah, that is pretty tricky. Okay, Rev It Up Gororo says, Aziz, honestly, learn to read the room. No fit, no problem. I would just start my own channel. Be blessed. That was well said, beloved. I appreciate you. Because, yes, start your own channel. You don't have to get in my chat and try to go in on me, because here's the bottom line. No matter what I say or how I feel about the situation or how any of us feel about the situation, the bottom line is it's up to the jury. The prosecution has to bring the burden of proof so they can convince the jury whether or not Diddy is guilty. The defense has to cast a reasonable doubt. Okay? So, because the prosecution has to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, and the defense has to cast a reasonable doubt so they can get Diddy off. So at the end of the day, no matter what any of us say, it is literally all up to the jurors. And who knows what they're thinking? Because just like some of us are thinking that they have their case, that they can prove it, some people are thinking that they can't. The jurors are regular people just like us. Some of them will agree with those of us who think Diddy is guilty and should be found as such. Some of them will agree with those who think that he is not guilty and should be acquitted. So that is how it is. And they'll have to come to those decisions themselves during deliberation. So, I mean, to be really trying to go back and forth with somebody on YouTube is just crazy work for me, because I'm on here as a content creator and I'm going to do my commentary how I see fit. I'm not here to prove any points. And quite frankly, his whole thing was blown for me when he said that R. Kelly didn't get convicted of a whole RICO. Talking about the Mann Act. Yeah, he got convicted of the Mann Act and the RICO. Okay, that's what he got. So how do you not know that? I mean, you're trying to tell me something and act like I'm dumb, but you didn't even know that he was actually convicted of the RICO that he was charged with. Okay, that's all I'm saying. Okay, so they're still on a break. While we're on a break, let's have some music, okay? Let's have some music to lighten the mood, honey. We got people up in here trying to be nefarious, okay? Trying to take down our vibrations, honey. Why? Did he send them? I have questions.
Lights shining down in the moonlight, girl, can't help but feel this connection flow with every move. Go along the floor where you smile. Makes me want more. Heartbeat and sing at the sound of soul. Tonight we dance, just lose control. I can't resist the way you move. It's been a bliss. Your eyes gazing on the stars above. This night is ours, wrapped in our love. But bend this flame, our melody sweet, can't help but feel the rhythm in my feet, even right there. Like the earth is spinning, all of the dance where we both live. You got that groove. Here's a true bliss.
Okay, so with that all being said, I'm going to go back to that video in a second. But Cerebral, I didn't mean to remove your comment because I actually wanted to read it. You said something about, hold on. Darn it, I did not mean to remove that comment. I was trying to remove the video with the music playing. But you said something about it's something more sinister with Diddy. I absolutely believe that, beloved. Why people were scared of him. Let me tell you something. I did videos about an insider who knew Diddy, who'd been to some of Diddy's parties and whatnot, who basically told me that Diddy was using the Lesser Key of Solomon, that book, and conjuring demons. And also about him doing this ritual to invoke the Roman god Bacchus. And that's why he was having these freak offs and these wild parties, which is the same type of parties they had in ancient Rome, known as bacchanalias. Okay, and I thought it was interesting because if you all remember, I told you all this like a year and a half ago. And then just recently, maybe last week, I want to say it was, or maybe it was sometime after Diddy's trial started, that they literally said in an article, they mentioned Diddy and these bacchanalias. Okay. And then I showed you all a picture. I think I showed you all the picture where Diddy was dressed like a Roman god. So he's definitely into that ancient Roman stuff. He's definitely into some sort of dark magic, okay, in my opinion, because first of all, he has Erzuli Frida tattooed on his back and has been said to have done rituals to conjure up Erzuli Danter. I'm sorry, he has Erzuli Danter tattooed on his back, but has been said to conjure up Erzuli Frida, who is a protector of men who like men. Erzuli Danter, the one on his back, is a protector of women and children, which I find interesting because he's always been accused of beating women. So for him to have that tattoo on his back, I think that's just crazy work. But that's just my opinion. Now, maybe at some point today, for those of you who missed it, I can go to that video where I talked about him conjuring up those demons and all that stuff. And also how he was chakra bursting. Okay, how he was bursting chakras, the people's root chakras. I can go to those videos later. Maybe we'll look at a clip or two after lunch. Okay, so let's keep listening to this report.
But that's certainly the approach that they're going to take, as they, indicated during opening statements.
Right. I mean, they're saying, look, I mean, you may not like the CNN.
Oh, and by the way, Cecil, beloved, Cecil Adipose Brown, I hope I said your middle name right, says, Queen, you're doing a wonderful job. Thank you, beloved. I appreciate your kind words.
Video, but that's not a smoking gun for what he's accused of in this trial. Related to the drugs, why not charge him with some drug-related offenses, considering he was taking so many of them, and there's evidence that the government has of illegal substances in his house, where I would think for a regular person, if you were found to have, for example, cocaine in your home, which like there's white substances that he had, that someone would face a charge, but he's not.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that for, a number of different crimes that you've seen. So for some of the offenses that have been discussed in testimony, right? Even just instances of alleged abuse. I've heard people say, well, why wasn't he just charged with assault? Number one, some of them aren't federal crimes. So here we have federal prosecutors, not state prosecutors. Some of these acts would be time barred, so they didn't come within the time period of the statute of limitations, so prosecutors wouldn't be able to bring them. Some of it may have been strategic, that we really want to keep this case focused on sex trafficking and the nature of, what these victims went through. But I'm not sure why they didn't bring some of these in. My guess is that probably if there was something obvious that they could have charged federally that they would have jurisdiction over and venue over, they probably would have. So, I'm not sure why they made that strategic decision.
Hello. My name is Adam.
Couple of updates from CNN. Okay, Judge Arun Subramanian says, they say he asked prosecutor Maureen Comey if they're still on track for the day. Comey said George Kaplan's cross-examination took 3 times as long as prosecutors anticipated, but said that she still thinks that they'll get through the witnesses that they expect to call today by the end of the day. Because here's the thing, they're supposed to have 5 people testify today. That's a lot. Okay, they're supposed to have 5 people testify, and it's already 11:30. So she's saying that she thinks they're still on track. So I guess we'll see. Okay, and then the short break is ending. Kid Cudi is in the witness box, and the jury is now entering. I think it's good that they're having the lunch brought in for the jurors. I think that's good. They also feed them breakfast. Okay, they have breakfast brought in for them at 8:30. And I think they may have just started that. I don't know if they've been doing it the whole entire time, but they said one of the reasons they do that is so that the jurors don't come straggling in late. But some of them have been late for the past couple of days. So I don't know if they already were bringing the breakfast in at 8:30 or that's something they started because some of them were late.
And then it's important to remember it's still early on in what's expected to be roughly a 7-week trial, and there's just been a lot to talk about each and every day. But to this point, how would you say the prosecution is doing in laying out that, yeah, Sean Combs, maybe he's a domestic abuser. We're not talking about that. Drugs, we're not talking about that. We are arguing that he was running a criminal enterprise. How has the prosecution done, in your opinion, to this point in making that argument?
Yeah, so early days still, like you said, very hard to know how the entire case is going to shape out. I imagine we'll hear from more victim witnesses. I imagine we'll see more, physical evidence that will connect all these things. But, if I had to say right now, I think the prosecution has done a very good methodical job of showing each of the elements that they need to show legally to prove sex trafficking, the prostitution, and the racketeering. I think they probably are there on the legal elements for each of these offenses. But here's the tricky part. There is still this very difficult, it's I almost want to say like the vibe of, a racketeering case that I'm not sure that they've convinced all the jurors that this is a racketeering enterprise. And I think that's going to be challenging for them. I think we need to hear from more people that worked for Combs, that helped assist him with some of these racketeering acts that have been charged. We need to hear more about how this wasn't just, all about him, why this was an enterprise, why it's bigger than just, the relationship between Cassie and Combs. That's, I think, what we need to see more focus on in the next few weeks. Look, they're probably there on all of the elements, and legally they probably have a facially sufficient case that they could even put forth to the jury now. But you have to do more than that. You have to be able to convince jurors that not only is this the legal thing to do, but this is actually, the moral and the right thing to do. And while they've certainly established that Combs is an awful human being, they also need to convince the jurors that these were the right charges, that this wasn't, prosecutorial overreach. And I think that's what they'll probably do and focus on in the next couple of weeks.
And here's the thing, when Capricorn Clark testifies, she's surely going to testify to the fact that she was sitting outside in a car while Diddy and an associate were inside Kid Cudi's house. This is how you know Diddy is absolutely nefarious and crazy. Now, even somebody of his stature with all the money and resources that he has, why would he himself break into someone's house? Okay, most people of that status, if they were going to do such a thing, they would have other people doing it. He literally was in that man's house himself. That's real crazy. Okay, and that is scary as hell for me. Now I'm really thinking about the whole Kim Porter situation. Okay, Diddy is willing to climb through windows or come through doors or whatever to get into someone's personal space inside of their home. That's right. Be the Difference Clothing said he felt unstoppable. I absolutely believe it. Has anyone ever seen that movie Untouchable? Okay, about when Elliot Ness was trying to catch Scarface Al Capone. Okay, which they never could get him, by the way. So they ended up getting him on tax evasion. You see, the point is when the feds want you, they'll find a way. Okay. They will find a way by hook or by crook 9 times out of 10. Now, they don't win every case, but they damn sure try to. Okay, they darn sure try to. So I just can't believe Diddy was in that man's house. Now, I had heard that before, but I didn't know Diddy himself was actually in there. I literally thought that he probably sent somebody. Okay. And then Christina said everyone was scared because they know that he most likely unalived some of those people that passed away around him. I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. Poetical Wind says Cudi didn't have cameras in his house. I know, you would think that he would. I would think that all celebrities have cameras in their houses. Okay, Christopher said feds win 98% of their cases. Yeah, just about that. Okay, so Jay Gray says this is an accumulation of different offenses that is being proven in federal court that he's in hot water. He's going down. I absolutely believe that he is going down. But just remember that I told you all, even if he's convicted, he has a possibility of getting his case overturned due to prior bad acts testimony. Now, here's another update. Okay, this is from CNN less than a minute ago. The last time Kid Cudi saw Cassie Ventura was at a private club in Los Angeles a few days after his car was damaged in a fire in 2012. He reached out to Sean Diddy Combs after the car fire and finally told him that we needed to meet up and talk. He had been wanting to talk to me, so after the fire, I was like, this is getting out of hand. I need to talk to him. It clearly was getting out of hand, honey. It was getting out of hand when he started making threats and telling Cassie he was going to blow up the car in the first place. Okay, honey, what do you do when you have the devil on your back? Okay. Okay, so still nothing back yet from, oh, here we go. Inner City Press says, okay, AUSA says, did you see Sean Combs later? This is from 2 minutes ago. Did you see Sean Combs later? Muscuddy says a few years later, also at Soho House. He said, I'm just sorry for all the bull-ish. I was surprised, so I found peace with it. AUSA said no further questions at this time. Now the judge calls Mr. Brian Steele. Here's the time for the cross-examination. Okay, Brian Steele says, I want to ask you some questions about your Porsche in 2022. Muscuddy said 2012. Steele says, I apologize. You get a call about damage to your vehicle. Any surveillance photos? Muscuddy said, no, my dog sitter did send me pictures of the damage. Yeah, you know, it would have been so much better if Kid Cudi had cameras in his house and could have caught Diddy's arse in there. But you know what? Here's the thing. Even if he had cameras in his house, beloved, Diddy more likely than not, in my opinion, would have stolen the cameras because he probably would have looked for them. I'm sure they would have gone in there looking for cameras, and if they found them, would have collected the cameras, just taken them up out of there. Okay, so there was no footage available. Diddy is just like, oh my gosh. I mean, he really is like a whole mob boss. Is it any wonder he's been charged with RICO? Who besides the mob engages in this sort of nefarious behavior? Okay, supposedly extorting people, coercing and forcing people, S-trafficking, and the S-trafficking is already proven, as far as I'm concerned, because he's been accused of it under the Mann Act. Okay, the people can be complicit, but nonetheless, see, the Mann Act is basically based off of morality. And also, let's not forget, it was started because of a black man by the name of Jack Johnson. So that being said, it basically says if you're taking anybody across state lines, which is, you know, affecting interstate commerce, if you're taking someone across state lines to engage in prostitution, even if they agreed to it, that's still trafficking under the Mann Act. And let's not forget that they amended that act from what it previously was in 1910. Honey, Diddy is a scary person. He really is. I bet he literally put the fear of God in some people. Okay, songwriter Sonny said complicit equals complacent. American Islam said you definitely don't mess with the devil's girlfriend. Okay, that's what you don't do. And Diddy is one. Aubrey Allen said a lot of plea deals. Yeah, I believe it's a few plea deals, but I believe most of these people got immunity. Okay, Mary Lou said, is there a police report of the arson? Well, he said there's a police report of the break-in. Yeah, there was a police report of the arson as well, because remember, he said that the police said that there was a Molotov cocktail. Okay, so yeah, he made police reports. Songwriter Sonny said today's sponsor is ADT. Okay.
And even though it's not a domestic violence case, because that video is so shocking, the evidence that's being submitted showing a lot of illegal substances in his home could still, for a juror, do you find, I mean, how much of an impact does Sean Combs as a bad guy have when it comes to jury deliberations in your experience, where clearly they need to get to a point that he was running a criminal enterprise, but they could look at him through the prism of this is a bad person, and then be able to then make an easier connection than seeing someone that was a saint and then say, well, how could he run a criminal enterprise then?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. In my experience, jurors have these two competing goals. They want to make sure that they are doing the right thing, in that, guilty people are held to account. I think they come into this, I really believe in the jury process, and I think most jurors come to this wanting to follow the law and wanting to make sure that if somebody is guilty, that they are, held accountable for their crimes. Similarly, they want to make sure that they don't make a mistake, that somebody who didn't commit it, you never want to be the one that sends an innocent person to jail. Here, I do think the jurors will take some solace in the fact that, however their decision shakes out, if they end up convicting him, this is not a good person. I think, jurors want to make sure that people who have done nasty things, and here there is just no dispute that Combs has done horrible criminal things. You've seen it with your own eyes through these videos. You've heard damning testimony about it from Cassie. So I think they can take a lot of solace of the fact that, whatever they do, if they convict him, it is somebody who very much will have deserved that conviction. So I think that helps. And it just goes to what I was saying earlier, the whole, yes, I'm a domestic abuser, but no, I'm not a racketeer. It might be a good defense legally. You might convince courts of that. It's a lot harder to convince 12 people who've seen evidence of how awful your client was. It's a harder job to convince them.
Yeah, and it's, we're still at the beginning of this. So it just seems like each and every day there's like a new shocking, piece of Combs' life and what he's accused of doing that comes out. We'll see how it plays out over the next 7 weeks. Barrett Berger, former assistant U.S. attorney for the Eastern and Southern Districts of New York. Thank you for taking the time to be with us.
All right. Okay, this from a minute ago from CNN. Kid Cudi is now testifying about the meeting that he set up with Sean Diddy Combs after his car was damaged. He said when he first walked into the meeting, he was alone with Combs. Sean Combs was standing there staring out the window with his hands behind his back, like a Marvel supervillain, he says. That's exactly what Diddy is. Okay, that's exactly what he is. All right, he's the Joker as far as I'm concerned. He said that, or Lex Luthor. He said they went on to discuss Kid Cudi's relationship with Cassie Ventura. He said, we discussed pretty much the whole story about how me and Cassie first started to date, to what it was, to how it ended. Kid Cudi said that he told Combs that he had taken Ventura's word when she told him that she and Combs were over. Diddy didn't care if she was over or not. He didn't care if it was over or not. He felt like he owned Cassie, in my opinion. He felt like she couldn't leave until he said so. Even though he was out there lying and cheating and doing all he could do. Please pay attention. Okay? The Hood Rilla said, who in here thinks Diddy not going to jail besides Ness? Awkward Girl Rising said, more like Hellboy Queen. Okay. Oh, so nefarious. Cosmic Thought says Sean Combs looks different. Weird clone. Now, this isn't Diddy, beloved. That's not Diddy. I believe that guy is Haitian. That's his doppelganger. Okay, that's what that is. Mel says Diddy wanted to have his cake and eat it too. Selfish SOB. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it was, in my opinion. Political Will says typical narcissist possessive activity. Yes. Narcissists tend to be very much control freaks, possessive and controlling, and want everything to always go their way. I mean, I know that we all want things to go our way, but we are realistic enough to know that things can't always go our way, right? And you all remember that video I showed you all of Diddy throwing a whole tantrum, talking about, I get what I want. I get everything that I want. Act like a whole nut. Okay? Broken this man's house. I'm just really tripping off this. He's broken in this man's house allegedly with Capricorn Clark sitting outside in the car, scared to death, probably thinking, what if the cops show up? We're all going down. Okay, and I don't have anything to do with it. I've been forced to be here against my will and wishes. Crazy. This is all crazy. April says, yep, I was just about to say that, Queen, that was so cringy. It really was, okay? It really is crazy. Crazy as hell. Aquarius MC says, yes, Queen, I agree. Also nefarious, okay? Patricia said, why nobody has interviewed his sister? Honey, she probably won't interview with anybody. Okay, I bet you she don't want to say anything. April said they should play that video in court. Which video? The one of him beating Cassie? They played that. And let me tell you all something. Did you all see the entire video? Did I show you all that? Because they didn't use the one that CNN had, because that would have been sped up and edited, so they say, to make it seem, I guess they said they tried to make it seem more nefarious. But when I saw the slowed down version, I mean, at the end of the day, it still looked nefarious to me. Okay, there was more context in it because you could see different things that happened because it was from different angles, as opposed to when the guy screen recorded it. See, he only had the one angle because he did it recorded on his phone. But the security surveillance video, it shows different angles. And let me tell you something, Diddy was looking like a whole darn fool. Okay, he really was. The Hood really said, Queen, you should do a show with Ness. I don't think no other Diddy supporters is in the chat. Oh, okay. I don't know who Ness is, beloved. I don't know who Ness is. Yeah, Nisi, that's what he said. I'm a savage. He sure did say that with his crazy self. Okay. And you know, all these videos of Diddy saying crazy stuff in the past are now starting to resurface. I just saw one yesterday. I mean, there's a bunch of them. Okay, so 1 minute ago on cross-examination, Kid Cudi confirmed that DNA was collected from his vehicle after it was damaged in the 2011 fire. Defense attorney Brian Steele asked Kid Cudi if he was aware that the DNA results that came back were from a woman. Kid Cudi said he didn't hear any follow-up from authorities about the results. So they didn't even follow up with this man? Were these some of the cops that Diddy allegedly paid off? I have several questions. Okay, wow, the DNA was from a woman. That's interesting. I wonder who this woman was. On cross-examination, Kid Cudi testified that when his relationship with Cassie Ventura ended, they just stopped talking after being in contact almost every day for about a year. She played you, right? This is what Brian Steele said. He said yes. So Cassie was talking to this man almost every day for a year. And then nothing. All of a sudden just stops calling him. It's nothing. Cut off completely. Wow, that's cold-blooded. That's cold-blooded right there. Now, I have to say, that's cold work. What do y'all think? What do y'all think, honey? I find this all interesting. Be the difference close at typical cop behavior. Mm-hmm. Okay, Ladybug says, no, you did not show the entire video, Queen. Oh, okay. Well, I'll have to get that video. I'll try to get it when we go on the break so I can show you all that. I could have sworn I showed it, but I guess I saw it myself and forgot about it. Okay. Thank you, beloved. I'll try to find it on the break. Patricia said, Queen, she hasn't even come to support her brother in court. At the end of the day, listen, I told you all, I really feel bad about the things that happened to Cassie, but I just really don't think Cassie's a good friend, because her friend, why do I still have Diddy on here? Let me take him down. I don't think that Cassie is a good friend, because her friend Carrie Morgan, let me tell you something. When Diddy hit her in the head with a hanger, and gave her whole concussion. And then she wanted the $30,000 because she was going to sue. When Cassie took her the money, Cassie told her she was doing too much, basically. Okay, she was like, you're embellishing this, or like she was just making it more than what it was. He hit this girl in the head with a darn wooden hammer. And I want you to think about the amount of force that he had to have used, okay, for her to have a whole concussion. I mean, he had to have drawn like a bam, as hard as he possibly could. That's crazy. So what did he to split her skull? Okay, Cassie said she was doing too much. No, I don't think she did enough. She should have gone to the police and then still sued him for the $30,000 or however much she wanted, okay, in court, in civil court. This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. Diddy is a devil, honey. Nobody can deny that, or you can, but you won't make sense. Okay, you won't make sense. Now, 4 minutes ago, this is from Inner City Press. Still says, in 2011, you went on a tour. Muscati says yes. Still says 65 locations. Muscati says yes. Still says at that time, Sean Combs was an icon, or Sean Combs as an icon. I think it should say was. Okay, it's a typo. Sean Combs was an icon. Fair to say? Muscati says yes. Still says you and Miss Ventura had an extra relationship. AUSA says objection. Now they call a sidebar. I knew we couldn't get through the day without a sidebar being called at least once. Why do they not want him to answer that? Because they don't want it to look like Cassie was having sex with anybody other than Diddy. So after the sidebar, Muscati says, Mr. Steele, can I? Judge says, no, you can do that on redirect. Steele says, do you want to tell me something? Muscati says, Sean Combs asked me about doing a song with Miss Ventura in 2010. Steele says, thank you. Okay. It's almost 12, so I guess we'll be going to that 30-minute break soon. Everybody make sure you get your water, get your popcorn, get your snacks or whatever, get you a sandwich, whatever you got to do so we can get back to it, okay, after the break. So while we're waiting on more updates, let me see if this is the video I want to go to. Okay, I'm going to pull up another video. Okay, so this is a report from ET. Okay, I'm going to put an overlay on this. Share my screen. While you all are watching this, I'm going to go ahead and create my link for the next live and post it. So I don't have to worry about doing that after. Maybe this time I can actually have time to get me a bite to eat.
So more drugs. We've already heard that Sean Combs, from other witnesses, did drugs, had drugs. This is the first time that the jurors were able to really see some of the pictures and then the confirmation from the special agent about what these drugs were. So he described blue pills, black pills, orange pills, pink pills, and many of them testing positive for cocaine, ketamine, MDMA, and other drugs like that. So the jurors heard more about the drugs and also sex toys. There were a few sex toys that were found inside the bedroom, as well as a total of 18 platform heels. What this is supposed to prove, we will find out, but it was a little bit more of the same in terms of what we've heard, but now the jurors were actually able to visibly see it. Throughout this time, when they're showing these drugs and whatnot, I'm looking at Combs's expression. He's pretty stoic. And then I also noticed that during this testimony, 2 of his sons actually walked in. So we weren't sure if we were going to see family members, any of his children today, but we did see 2 of his sons.
In those photos that jurors were able to see today of that Miami raid, we saw many images of guns. What really does that mean for Diddy, if anything at all? What are they trying to prove with photographs of so many weapons?
So again, I think this speaks to the coercion and the violence, the threatening, those sort of things are elements of the crime, and that's listed in the indictment. We saw a .45 caliber gun. We saw the receivers for an AR-15, and something that the defense did on cross-examination is really question the special agent about why some of the pictures that we were seeing
why there weren't pictures taken before they unwrapped the receivers, for instance. So the defense making a point that some of these things were sort of put away, stored away. There was tape around them, that it was the agents that came in and sort of showcased it and showed the pictures, or they even made an example of how the investigators were in his bedroom, in Combs's bedroom, and then there were pillows strewn about, and they said, well, why didn't you take pictures before you guys started digging through different things? And they also made mention of that as it pertains to what they found in his bedroom closet.
And I mean, there were images of his bathroom, and it was trashed.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff on that counter, but particularly there was a wooden box that had sort of a gold like medallion or pendant on it, and it said Puffy on top of it. And that's where, again, investigators found more drugs. Another thing, kind of to what the defense was expressing in their cross-examination, is the defense made note of how many agents were involved, in 80 to 90 total. So they were trying to say, okay, so this is this one person, this house, you know that he's going to be gone. You know, did it take 80 or 90 agents to swarm the house, surround the house, attack it by land and by sea? And the special agent basically said the first group was a very small group, but yes, there was a total in all of about 80 or 90 investigators that were involved. Also mentioning the 6 people that were at his home who were all arrested and handcuffed for about an hour.
And when it comes to the guns, was he licensed to carry? Did he have permits for the guns? Were they legal?
You know what? I'm not sure about that, Rachel, but I can say that's a great question, because when you look at this criminal enterprise, there's nothing in anything that he has been charged with. There's no document in terms of what he's been charged with that has to do with gun violations. It's about, that sex trafficking, the criminal enterprise, the transportation of prostitution. So I'm not sure that is going to fall into whether or not he's more likely to be seen as guilty of those crimes.
Gotcha. You mentioned the forensic psychologist, Dawn Hughes. She was testifying today. Why is her testimony important?
Dr. Dawn Hughes, this forensic psychologist, said that she was giving subject matter testimony. She was speaking generally about the abuse that victims face and how likely it is for them to stay in these relationships for a long time. She talked about things that they would deal with over a period of time when it comes to coping mechanisms or memory and things of that nature. So she was there talking directly to the jurors. I noticed that she would look right at the jurors and explain, these are things that we expect when we're dealing with domestic violence victims, or this is why someone might stay, and this is how they might suppress memories in order to cope with certain different situations. But on cross-examination, the defense is really going in about the fact that she is not a, quote, sort of expert on the case of Cassie Ventura or other people that might be testifying. So they're making a point to say, isn't it true that even in your line of work, you are not supposed to kind of make generalizations about anyone? Sure, you can have your research and your experience, but they were very focused on making sure the jurors understood that this expert had not reviewed psychological material regarding Cassie Ventura, had not interviewed Cassie Ventura, had not examined anything that had to do specifically with this case. And the doctor said that was true, but she was able to make some generalizations to help the jurors better understand some of the patterns of people who are victims of domestic violence.
But again, that goes back to the point of domestic violence, not sex trafficking and racketeering.
It is, right? And I think, again, there's this interesting sort of like a thread, if you will. And there are so many different elements that the jurors are going to have to consider when it comes time for them to decide beyond a reasonable doubt if Sean Combs is guilty of the crimes that the government says he is guilty of. But I believe that this sort of building up of
your favorite movies are on YouTube. Enjoy.
Domestic violence, the threats, the coercion, all kind of speak to the bigger picture of what the government is trying to prove.
So right now they're proving his character.
They're talking about his character. Right. They're talking about the behavior. But I really believe that this expert is there to help people understand that while we've seen text messages from Cassie Ventura saying she was willing and able to participate in some of these alleged freak-offs, this expert is there to say, well, there are times where a victim may go along with something because they're afraid. So I feel like that's sort of what they're there to do. But of course, all of this, I think, will really sort of come down to those jury instructions. And I've been on enough trials to know that these jurors hear all of this evidence, but at the end of the day, it's going to come down to them listening very carefully to what the judge says. This is what you need to consider in order to find this person guilty on.
Okay, so remember I told you guys that it's going to be, if the jury pays attention to the instructions, okay, so they understand the charges and how you determine guilt of these charges due to the weight of the evidence or not, then Diddy will likely be found guilty. Okay, that's just my opinion. And again, it's up to the jury. Okay, so let's continue.
This particular charge.
Okay, let's switch gears here. When will Kid Cudi take the stand, and why is his testimony important to this case?
So this morning, the judge even seemed surprised when the prosecutor said Kid Cudi actually will not be testifying today. So it sounds like there's a bit of a scheduling conflict. So it's not a matter of him not testifying, but we're not exactly sure when. But obviously, a lot of people were thinking he was going to be here possibly today or even tomorrow. But due to a scheduling conflict, he's not here yet. But he is expected to still testify.
And the reason his testimony is important is because maybe there was overlap during the time frame in which he dated Cassie, and perhaps she was with Diddy at the time.
So again, when you think about the elements of this crime, arson is one of them in terms of the racketeering, the conspiracy. And again, all of this is going back to leading an enterprise because of Combs' sexual desires. How Kid Cudi comes into play with this is Cassie Ventura testified that she was dating him briefly at the end of 2011. Cassie's mother, Regina Ventura, testified that Kid Cudi did come to the house around that time. This is also the time that Ventura said that Combs threatened her and threatened Kid Cudi, and allegedly said that he would blow up Kid Cudi's car. We know that his car exploded in 2012 per Cassie Ventura's civil lawsuit. And then the three of them apparently had a meeting at the Soho house to sort of make sure, according to Ventura, that Kid Cudi knew the relationship was off. Sean Combs was there. According to Ventura, Combs told Kid Cudi when he asked about his vehicle, what vehicle? So that's where you could possibly see this connection to the arson. But we do know that Combs has denied being involved in that in any way. So we'll see what happens. But I think that's what they're looking for. That Kid Cudi testimony could help to make sense of this idea of the car, the explosion, the allegations surrounding that, and if Combs had anything to do with that, or what more Kid Cudi might say happened beyond him asking Combs about the car and Combs saying, what vehicle?
Okay, so a couple of more updates. Okay, so this is from CNN from 2 minutes ago. During cross-examination, Kid Cudi said, "We wanted to clarify that he believes Sean Diddy Combs asked him to do a song with Cassie Ventura in 2010 rather than 2011. The first time Ventura spoke to him about her relationship with Combs was around Thanksgiving of 2010. Now that's when she was telling me she was having problems," he says. Now remember, Kid Cudi testified earlier today that he met Ventura around 2008 and dated her around 2011. He also testified, hold on. He also testified that when he and Ventura first started dating, he said he understood that she and Combs had some problems and they weren't dating any longer. 3 minutes ago, Kid Cudi testified about 2011 incident in which he said Sean Diddy Combs told him that he was inside his house, confirmed that there was no damage to his home after the break-in. Okay, he said Combs didn't threaten him when they spoke that day. 2 minutes ago, Kid Cudi confirmed that Cassie Ventura had told him there was physical abuse in her relationship to Sean Diddy Combs, but she hadn't told him about the sexual abuse. He said Combs never interrupted the time that he spent with her. Okay, now did y'all hear that? She told him about the abuse, the physical abuse, but not about the sexual abuse. Now I want to tell you all something, and don't get mad at me. Okay, I'm just going to be stating the obvious. So she told him about Diddy putting paws on her, but she didn't tell him about Diddy making her do the freak offs, as she said. Now, some of the jury may take that as she was complicit in those freak offs, because I want you all to pay attention to something. Punisher's testimony yesterday, was it yesterday? When I think it was the day before, but anyway, when the Punisher testified, you know, it's interesting because he was the prosecution's witness, but his testimony actually helped the defense because he said that Cassie gave him her consent. And when questioned as to how that was so by the prosecution, he said because of her body movements, like she scooted up under him, like I want that. Okay? His words, not mine. She scooted up under him. So, you know, what is the jury thinking? Okay, I have several questions. All right. Poor Kid Cudi, he was scared. Alex Fine is the only man standing 10 toes down for Cassie. May God bless their family, says Gwendolyn. You know, I'm not sure if Kid Cudi was scared because he went to meet up with Diddy. He also spoke to Diddy and he said he wanted to fight him. But, you know, we all know Diddy doesn't fight fair. He's going to bring somebody with him when it's a man. Okay. He may have felt that he was outnumbered. I wouldn't say that he was scared. And here's the thing. Keep in mind, beloved, Kid Cudi didn't run from Diddy. He was still dating Cassie. Cassie left him. After talking to him for a year, every day, she decided to go back to Diddy. So Kid Cudi didn't shy away. Alex Fine is no better than Kid Cudi as far as I'm concerned because Kid Cudi stood 10 toes down too. Okay, Cassie just decided to go back to Diddy. And let's not forget, even when she got with Alex Fine in the beginning, she was still going back to Diddy. Okay? She was still going back to Diddy. Queen Sam says Cassie was thinking that she was tired of that small Tootsie Roll and now got that king-size Snicker bar. Well, you know, according to the report, she was getting king-size Snicker bars at the freak-offs, according to her own words in the text messages. Let's not forget. And then let's not forget about the Punisher. The Punisher, I'm sure they call him that for a reason, just my opinion. But also, let's not forget the testimony by David James. He said that he saw Cassie lying in the hotel when he brought her the Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles, mind you, and she had the cover up to her neck and looked like she was nude under there, and said that Diddy was in the shower, or he thought that was Diddy in the shower, but some naked man scurried up out of there, and that man was well endowed. So she was already getting her fair share of beefsteaks. All I'm saying, please pay attention. That's all I'm saying, okay? Now, that being said, I'm going to go ahead and set this up real quick. Let me see what they have on Inner City Press, if they've posted anything. Okay, so here they go. Okay, so the judge says, this is from 1 minute ago, redirect, he's asking. AUSA Johnson says, what did Miss Ventura confide in you about abuse? Miss Cudi said that he would hit her, sometimes kick her. AUSA said the day of the break-in, was she carefree? Miss Cudi said no. AUSA says, what did Capricorn Clark tell you? Miss Cudi says Sean Combs and an affiliate forced her into a car to come to my house. I called the police. AUSA says, how would you describe Cassie that day? Miss Cudi says, just really shook, him finding out about us. See, that's the thing. Kid Cudi, if he was scared, he could have just ditched Cassie as soon as she told him that Diddy found out. He could have ditched her after his car was blown up and Diddy broke in his house, but he didn't. So he had to put up with a whole lot more than Alex Fine had to put up with, as far as I'm concerned, because Alex didn't get his car blown up or anybody breaking in his house. So in the middle of Kid Cudi's cross-exam by Brian Steele, Judge Aaron Subramanian responds for 2 days or 3 days time to enter. Hold on, what? Update in the middle of Kid Cudi's cross-exam to Brian. Okay, I'm sorry. Here goes Matthew. Here goes Matthew posting his own self. Okay, he's giving himself a plug. Okay, about the Diddy docket request. Unsealing the docket, unsealing docketing request, docket 336. Okay. He's got some paperwork here. Now, with that all being said, that looks like that's all they have from Inner City Press. Let me go to CNN. Like sub, everyone, please don't forget to like and share. I appreciate your cooperation as well as your participation, beloveds. Okay, so here we go. From 1 minute ago, defense attorney Brian Steele asked Kid Cudi if Sean Diddy Combs' treatment of Cassie Ventura bothered him because he was in love with her. Kid Cudi said yes. Wait a minute, hold up. Kid Cudi was in love with Cassie? Apparently so. Steele asked, he also suggested to Kid Cudi that during his meeting with Combs, Kid Cudi's understanding was that he and Combs were in the same position, having been played by Ventura, living a whole double life. Do y'all remember that video that I did about a week or so ago where I put Diddy and Kid Cudi on the front and I said Cassie was playing both of them? Because I knew that's what she was doing. Now, some of y'all want to act like Cassie's just so sweet and innocent, but she literally was playing both of them. Okay, she also played Ryan Leslie. Okay, so anyway, with that all being said, hold on. Now, defense attorney Brian Steele asked Kid Cudi if Sean Diddy Combs' treatment of Cassie. Okay, I read that already. Okay, so 3 minutes ago, defense attorney Brian Steele finished his cross-examination saying, "Thank you so much, sir." And Kid Cudi said, "Yeah, no problem." Now, who's next? Prosecutor Emily Johnson is back up for a redirect examination of Kid Cudi. Johnson asked, what Cassie Ventura had told Kid Cudi about the physical abuse from Sean Diddy Combs. Kid Cudi says that he would hit her, sometimes kick her. Okay, that's the same thing reported from Inner City Press. So that's all they have right now as far as the last updates with CNN. Now, here is a couple of more updates from Inner City Press. Hold on here. Looks like they called another sidebar. Okay, 2 minutes ago, AUSA says, why did your relationship with Miss Ventura end? Why is the question. Ms. Cudi says the drama, it was getting out of hand. I wanted to give space. AUSA said, what drama? Ms. Cudi said the break-in for my safety, her safety. Steele says objection. Judge says grounds. Steele says speculation. Judge says overruled. AUSA says, why did you have safety concerns? Ms. Cudi said, because I knew Sean Combs was violent. Steele says, Your Honor, may we approach? Now they want another sidebar. I mean, I don't know why Brian Steele wants to approach, because we all know Diddy's violent, including his defense team. And let's not forget that Mark Garagos, his former lawyer and also now friend, said on his podcast, Two Angry Men with Harvey Levin, that Diddy is a violent person. Okay, he said he's a violent person. He said, but that doesn't prove a RICO. All right, so judge says redirects. Okay, no, I read that already. I'm sorry, that's old. Hold on. Okay, so they're still having a sidebar. This is also juicy. I wonder what this is all about. Sidebar. Okay, so while we wait for that, let me just pull up something. Okay, here we go. Now this is News Nation. This is News Nation. Testimonies against Diddy from Inner Circle startling. Okay, here we go. I think Diddy knew who to act crazy with and who not to. That's what I think.
Diddy trial now. The forensic psychologist Dawn Hughes was on the stand earlier today, day 7. She was brought in by prosecutors to break down why victims of domestic abuse stay in relationships in many cases, how they cope, why it takes leaving the relationship for some victims to then open up about the abuse they were experiencing. The entertainment journalist Shagun Oduolowu is back with us today on the case. And I want to talk about that testimony first, but I want to begin, Shagun, if I can, with an observation I know that you were making, is that big picture, not just today, how many times that we've seen through the testimony examples of people that were just looking the other way when a lot of bad stuff was happening to Cassie or someone else. You feel like that's been a trend, right?
Yeah, Connell, as always, thank you for having me. And it's been so startling to me. Employees, former assistants, former musicians, everyone within the Diddy orbit, all have testified they witnessed violence, they saw it on multiple occasions, and yet they did nothing. And this spans years, right? Cassie is with him, but all of these people, these bystanders, are watching it happen, seeing it occur, and still either continue to do business with Diddy or stay in his orbit. It reminds me of a scene in the movie Road to Perdition where Paul Newman and Tom Hanks are in the same room, and Paul Newman says there are only killers in this room. Like, there are no saints in this courtroom. Right? Everyone testifying has got some filth on them too. And though it does not cloud what Diddy does, I think it helps to bolster what the expert testified to today, that you can be so enmeshed in this world that your reason, your understanding of right from wrong can go completely out the window. Dawn Richard especially continued to do business and stay in another group with Diddy after Danity came, after she testified to witnessing Diddy trying to hit Cassie over the head with a skillet. She still stayed. She still did music with him. So I think this gives a better picture of just how many people were involved in this, and whether the swarm was too much for them to see up or down, looked the other way while all of these atrocities were going on.
So Dawn Hughes, the psychologist, testified about what she described as a trauma bond that can form between a domestic abuser and a victim, that there's almost always love, attraction, and companionship in abusive relationship. You get highs and lows, and the victim feels entrapped because of physical violence, psychological abuse, surveillance, or financial control, Shagun, which could be many of those things, but even that last point could be at the heart of this case.
Yes, financial abuse is something that needs to be looked at, because what we've heard in so many forums and chats and discussions all around is, why did she stay? Oh, she must have stayed for the money. But financial abuse, when you're dealing with someone as all powerful as Diddy was, he controlled, and Cassie testified it, he paid her rent, he controlled who she saw, what she wore, where she went, and even how she made her money. He was in control of all of that. That financial is not something to overlook, because it was a way of him keeping her in control, and it was a way of him keeping his whole empire in control. All these people beholden to him for a paycheck, willing to go along with atrocities that they probably knew weren't
crazy. Even got her mom involved, which you heard about yesterday. The final point here, we talked about this before the last break. This is the federal agent was testifying this. What was found in his home in Miami? What were the items? So you got guns, 45 caliber handguns, several rounds in a suitcase, AR-15 parts, 31 bottles of baby oil, along with sex toys, women's high heels, and the like. So I don't know if we're surprised at this point, but that's what was there.
Not surprising at all. There's this thing in court trials where they say, if you have the facts, pound the facts, and if you don't, pound the desk. The prosecution is doing both. They're pounding the facts of an abusive, kinky, sexually deviant person by showing these pictures and parading these witnesses to testify to the violence. But they're also pounding the desk, saying, look at this, look at this, look at this, look what he is, look what he is, which will play later in the trial when the defense tries to somehow rehabilitate the picture that's been painted of Diddy so far in this trial.
All right, Shagun, we're back to the trial in our next hour of coverage. We thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app right now on your phone.
All right. Mel said Diddy was wearing women's shoes. I was wondering, where did those shoes come from? Like, whose shoes were those? Okay, where did those shoes come from? Your son said, has he been to a Diddy party? Alice says, I thought Mary J was so close to Diddy. She was until this news hit. Then all of a sudden she don't have time for it, honey. Please pay attention. Mary says she don't have time for it. Okay, so 1 minute ago, this is from CNN. On redirect examination, Kid Cudi testified that Sean Diddy Combs, the employee Capricorn Clark, called Kid Cudi outside of his house that morning in December of 2011, and she told him Combs came inside her apartment and physically forced her into the car. She said Cassie Ventura was really shook that morning, or he said she was really shook that morning. Okay, worried about Combs finally knowing that we had been hanging out and that he had my address and he was probably going to go to my house. Kid Cudi said he and Ventura broke up in December of 2011 because the drama had reached too much. He was concerned for her safety and his own, because I knew Sean Combs can be very violent. Okay. Aqua Girl Rising says he probably got her on those rugs. So sad. I wonder about that because she seemed to be worse off than he was with the rugs. She said that she literally was stealing his rugs. Okay, that's what she said. She said she was taking his rugs and that, she was doing them more than he knew. She hid it. Whole thing's crazy if you ask me. Okay, so no more updates as of yet. I'll tell you all in a minute. Okay, let me try to go ahead and post this link. Hold on, let me see something. Okay. Now I had a video. Hold on. I had a video of Tory Lanez's father that I wanted to check out while we were waiting for the updates. Tory Lanez's father was in fact interviewed. I want to say it was yesterday. He was interviewed again. Let me see if I can find that real quick. We're going to lunch at 12:30, it sounds like. Here we go. Hold on. Okay, that's not what I'm looking for. That's a short version of it. Okay, here it is right here. Likes up, everyone. Please like and share. Thank you in advance. This content isn't available right now. What happened to the video? So did News Nation delete the video? Why is it saying that the video is not here? Okay, so I'm just going to show you all this clip that's posted to not Facebook, but that's posted to TikTok.
It's gotten bad enough for him on the inside after this stabbing that it is a miracle that he survived, that now he's being moved as we speak. Is that true, sir? And what does that mean to you?
Yes, that is correct. It's one of the things we've been concerned about, but he's being moved because it's a part of the prison's protocol. That when a situation like this happens, I think they believe it's better for him to be in another facility. And so he is being moved as we speak. And we have concerns because, number one, he has just been discharged not many days ago from the hospital. And he was discharged with 14 stab wounds an incident that collapsed his lungs that, again, thankfully, he is recovering. He's doing well, but now he has to take a 3-hour ride, and he is the victim in this situation. Those are the things that really concern me. He is the victim. He never provoked this incident in prison. And anybody that knows him, in fact, I've met many people going there to visit him, my wife and I, that will tell you that he is someone who is liked. He's not someone who's a troublemaker. I was with the COs, the correctional officers, in the hospital where he was taken after this incident. And the COs spoke to me. They said when they heard on the intercom that they had to transport somebody to the hospital, it was him. The guy looked at me and said, why him of all people? Because he doesn't do anything like that, to warrant these kinds of things.
Okay, so let me see what we're working with here. Nothing from Inner City Press. Okay, so guys, less than 1 minute ago, the jury was dismissed for lunch. Okay, so let's all go to lunch. Excuse me, I'll be back at 1:15. They're going to come back at 1. I'm going to come back at 1:15. By the time I get back, they'll have some updates for us, so we don't have to just sit here and wait and twiddle our thumbs. Okay, so I'm going to post the link as soon. I just created the thumbnail. I'm going to post the link as soon as I close out of here. So anyway, I love you all to life. Okay, I hope you all are enjoying this so far. It's getting really juicy. Okay, so anyway, with that all been said, each one teach one. That's how we grow and thrive. Do something productive, constructive, but never destructive. And always remember, beloveds, to keep the Most High first in your lives. Peace.
With that gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you're done. They show no love for the queen. Why you hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans? I got dreams like King Luther, shed blood like Kunsa. You ain't helping my people, I ain't got nothing to say to ya. I want all the smoke like hookah. Talking reparations, America won't be great until they give us compensation. I'm like, I'm the hottest right now. See a bunch of lames out here trying to jock on my style. They be doing too much. I'm the queen, it's too easy. It's like they all at Popeyes, how they be talking so greasy. I just sit back and laugh while these haters get madder. So nefarious how they don't want my pockets with cheddar. I tell them they can do better. These snakes in the grass can leave a bite on your ass, cause y'all be trusting too fast. I got my foot on the gas, other one on they necks. Dropping receipts on haters, you better show some respect. I'm never facing regrets, we only facing the threats. Running through every challenge like a relay, break no sweat. It's a cold game, so I got that blanket with me. Now that my people awaken, ain't no going to sleep. I do not play by my piece, this time I'm playing for keeps. You talking slick, but when I see you like them ends, we gon' meet. And I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen. Why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen. Why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got